Chapter 11:18. Indrik voiced out. For hundreds of thousands of years, beings from all across the universe have been trying to acquire it so they could use its power. It is overly powerful and in the hands of the wrong person can cause great havoc. I managed to acquire it recently with Husarius' help, of course, after a difficult and dangerous travel to another dimension, Indrik explained. And you say it's mine? Gustav questioned as he moved closer to it. Yes, it is yours. As you probably already know, you're not in any way normal. Your existence is a very abnormal one, and despite this armor existing for as long as it has, it does belong to you, Indrik responded. Gustav stepped forward and stood right beneath the floating armor. But I can't use it, Gustav stated. No, not right now you can't, Indrik replied. It's too powerful for me and I'd probably be blown to bits if I tried to equip it, Gustav voiced out. Precisely, Indrik responded. Psi as expected. Gustav raised his left palm as recalled Kohelia. Kohelia's power was still trapped within him, and he was unable to access it despite them saying the power belonged to him. So how many more items are left to acquire? Gustav also recalled that there were supposed to be more of his things scattered across the universe. For more, that's as much as I can tell you for now. I can't give you any more info beyond that, Indrik clarified after answering before Gustav could respond. Sure, Gustav stated as he raised his hand to touch the armor. Nice place you got here, kid. A feminine voice suddenly resounded from behind. Gustav paused as he heard that and turned around. Miss Amy? He voiced with a tone of disbelief. How did you get here? No one was more surprised than Indrik. This was a space created by Husarius, and even as a crystal, Husarius was so powerful due to the sacrifice of all his kinsmen. This place practically existed in a private dimension. Doesn't matter, Miss Amy stated as she moved forward. Zin, a green glowing crystal, phased out of Indrik's forehead in the next instant and floated to Miss Amy's front. This one is no longer a normal being. Her existence has surpassed the threshold of every supernatural existence on Earth. And this isn't even her highest potential. She has the capacity to become even more powerful than this. Husarius voiced out lengthily as it floated in front of Miss Amy. It's too bad she's. What are you supposed to be? Miss Amy said with an intrigued tone as she stared at the floating talking crystal. That's Husarius. He used to have a body and be a... It's a long story, but he is in league with Indrik, and he revealed a bit to me about my true identity, Gustav voiced out. True identity? You've really been holding out on me, kid? Miss Amy responded with a suspicious tone. I've been out of camp for months, but you were AWOL. If not, I would have told you everything, Gustav said while shrugging his shoulders. What is that? Miss Amy questioned with a curious tone while pointing at the armor. It's very powerful, she added while scrutinizing its appearance. It is said to be amongst the most powerful tools in the universe, and according to them, it belongs to me, but I can't equip it just yet, Gustav stated in response. Another thing you've got to tell me in great detail. At least you and the other kid are getting along now, Miss Amy stated after arriving beside Gustav. We're not. He's not. It's just a necessary partnership, Gustav voiced out. Oh, is it now? A smirk appeared on her face as Miss Amy questioned. Indrik was turned into a third wheel here as Gustav and Miss Amy began to argue back and forth with each other. Are they fated? Indrik questioned. Intertwining fates, yes, but I sense a terrible omen, Husarius voiced in response. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. And what do you mean? Indrik said with a troubled tone. Something has changed. A tide has been triggered and we are now arriving at an intersection that branches in different paths. Only one of these paths leads to a future without tragedy. As for the others, not so much. While some are not filled with so much tragic events, just a single tragic event could cause so much catastrophe in his life which could eventually lead to a dark awakening, Husarius voiced out lengthily. It's confusing, Indrik stated in response. The fates always are. Husarius heaved a low sigh. What are the chances of following the path without any tragic event? Indrik questioned. A few seconds ago, it was 0.3%, but it has decreased even further now. It's 0.1 and it keeps decreasing by the second, Husarius answered. What? Some of them leapt right ahead, over each other while some leapt backwards. without being able to easily see the line. This was a very risky move, but they would be roasted if they wasted even a fraction of a second before reacting. Phew! The pillar of flames bursted right into the skies above and even parted the sea of dark clouds. There was a massive hole in the dark sky due to this for a few moments, and everywhere turned into mush and blush, and turns out they're all a bunch of sirens. Some of them leapt right ahead, over each other while some leapt backwards, without being able to easily see the line. This was a very risky move, but they would be roasted if they wasted even a fraction of a second before reacting. Phew! The pillar of flames bursted right into the skies above and even parted the sea of dark clouds. There was a massive hole in the dark sky due to this for a few moments, and everywhere turned into mush and blush, and turns out they're all a bunch of sirens. Theeb did it, Dildidij Susis. Is there Tuzodruj this is true? I had Joe idea it had come back to nor some of them leapt right ahead, over each other while some leapt backwards, without being able to easily see the line. This was a very risky move, but they would be roasted if they wasted even a fraction of a second before reacting. Phew! The pillar of flames bursted right into the skies above and even parted the sea of dark clouds. There was a massive hole in the dark sky due to this for a few moments, and everywhere turned into mush and blush, and turns out they're all a bunch of sirens. Theeb did it, Dildidij Susis. Is there Tuzodruj this is true? I had Joe idea it had come back to nor some of them leapt right ahead, over each other while some leapt backwards, without being able to easily see the line. This was a very risky move, but they would be roasted if they wasted even a fraction of a second before reacting. Phew! The pillar of flames bursted right into the skies above and even parted the sea of dark clouds. There was a massive hole in the dark sky due to this for a few moments, and everywhere turned into mush and blush, and turns out they're all a bunch of sirens. Theeb did it, Dildidij Susis. Is there Tuzodruj this is true? I had Joe idea it had come back to nor some of them leapt right ahead, over each other while some leapt backwards, without being able to easily see the line. This was a very risky move, but they would be roasted if they wasted even a fraction of a second before reacting. Phew! The pillar of flames bursted right into the skies above and even parted the sea of dark clouds. There was a massive hole in the dark sky due to this for a few moments, and everywhere turned into mush and blush, and turns out they're all a bunch of sirens. Theeb did it, Dildidij Susis. Is there Tuzodruj this is true? I had Joe idea it had come back to nor some of them leapt right ahead, over each other while some leapt backwards, without being able to easily see the line. This was a very risky move, but they would be roasted if they wasted even a fraction of a second before reacting. Phew! The pillar of flames bursted right into the skies above and even parted the sea of dark clouds. There was a massive hole in the dark sky due to this for a few moments, and everywhere turned into mush and blush, and turns out they're all a bunch of sirens. Theeb did it, Dildidij Susis. Is there Tuzodruj this is true? I had Joe idea it had come back to normal fawnmil didij Susis. Is there Tuzodruj this is true? I had Joe idea it had come back fawnmil if you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 11:19. Well, that's encouraging, Gustav muttered. Now that you've completed the device, our plans after Aesop can be moved forward, the system voiced internally. Moved forward? I have a terrorist organization to deal with in the coming week, a competition to win for Earth apparently, and a situation to take care of for one of my friends before those after Aesop plans can be put into motion, Gustav listed out. The device is to direct you towards areas of lingering warp demolator energies, right? The system inquired. Yes? Gustav answered. Does it work instantly? Can we say for sure that upon activation in space like you planned, it would immediately lead you in the direction of these energies? The system questioned. I can't say for sure till it's activated. And you know there are only specific points in space where it can be activated, so I hope you're not suggesting I try it out immediately, Gustav muttered while his eyes turned into slits. Exactly dumbass I am. The system responded with a ridiculing tone. No. Where do you suppose I get the time to visit space? Use the device and who knows wait for it to give me the coordinates. Gustav shook his head while responding. Even with all those intelligence point, you're not so bright, eh? Gustav, can't you make a damn clarification without spewing insults? You just need to get the device to one of the specific points you mentioned, activate it, and leave it in place with a layer of protection till you're ready to start searching the locations. By the time ISOP is done and over with, you'll be able to start looking for traces of the warp demolator energy instantly instead of getting unnecessarily delayed, the system analyzed. Oh, so what you meant by moving plans forward is more like prep, Gustav responded with an understanding tone. Still, there's the issue of traveling to one of the specific points in space and leaving the device there to function on its own, Gustav pointed out. You are ranked high enough to make use of a spacecraft, right? The system questioned. More like I'm smart enough to come up with something so I can operate one of the Embio spacecraft for my personal use, and yes, I see where you're going, but that's not the point. I don't have the time to be journeying through space at the moment. I'm heading to the ISOP training location tomorrow, and I can't delay that because I only have a week to brief and prepare the others for the upcoming operation, Gustav explained. I reckon it would take around 48 hours of journeying through space with a spacecraft to get to one of the specific points, the system calculated. Precisely, there's no time, Gustav stated. The reward you got from those extraterrestrial creatures, the system pointed out. SJ, what about it? Gustav questioned with a look of confusion. Did you forget about one of its abilities to teleport items? The system questioned. No, but that only works on certain conditions. Gustav was answering when the feminine voice of the system interrupted him again. The conditions must have been softened by now, or maybe completely inexistent. It has grown more powerful since that time since you keep feeding it energy crystals. You haven't tested out that particular ability of its in a long time, the system explained. And what if it doesn't work? I know it only works with inanimate objects, but the farthest it has teleported something away was around 100 feet. Gustav held his chin slightly as he stated with a contemplative expression. Just test it out first, dumbass. We can think of an alternative if it fails. Okay. Zing, the sacred jewel suddenly appeared amidst a flash of fluorescent light like it knew it was being summoned. Find this place in space. Gustav proceeded to send it a mental message. The circular sacred jewel now had a fist-sized gleaming light within its translucent and smooth surface. From the start, the gleaming light was only dot-sized, and now it became quite large within the circular covering. The gleaming light within blinked twice before the surface was covered by a sky-blue color which covered the light within. In the next few moments, the outer covering displayed an imagery which was without a doubt a location in space. There. That's one of the charged locations, Gustav muttered. Despite the area being void of stars, a glowing trail of orange like dust could be seen scattered across the vicinity. You should tell it to try sending the warp demolator energy detector there, the system urged. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. I guess so. Gustav was still a bit bothered due to the fact that even if this worked, it was unknown if this was a stable part of space. If the gravitational force in this part of space was too unstable, the device could collapse on itself before it could perform any readings. If he was there in person, it would be easier to figure out. Gustav proceeded to open his personal space and fetched one of the warp demolator energy detector. Partial collapsal transformation has been activated. Gustav's skin color turned green as he held onto the table-sized detector. SCRRDDJKKK LCCHHHH PN0VE1 calm, icicle-like crystals phased out of his hands and surrounded the entire warp demolator energy detector. In an instant, it was completed covered, looking like a spiky rock. It should still be able to function regardless of the outer covering now, Gustav muttered. SJ, send it to that place, Gustav commanded. The sacred jewel suddenly began to emit a bluish glow. Funusum. Wind began to circulate in the room due to the energy it emitted, causing Gustav's hair to be blown backwards. The table-size warp demolator detector was pulled from Gustav's grip and arrived before the bluish light the sacred jewel was emitting. ZHRHHHH. Despite being more than 6 times larger than the sacred jewel, the detector was sucked into the blinding bluish light. The surging energy reduced afterwards, and the vicinity began to return to tranquility. As the sacred jewel returned to normal, its circular surface once more displayed the location in space Gustav had asked it to send the detector to. It worked! Gustav muttered as he stared at the footage. Told you not to underestimate its power. The limitations reduces as this tool becomes more powerful. You should have noticed how large the light within has grown, the system voiced. Gustav nodded in understanding. Doesn't this mean it can warp reality even more better than before? He questioned himself internally. It had been a while since he tested the limit of the sacred jewel abilities, since he had mostly been focused on his yet. He kept feeding it with unique energy crystals created from the mixture of both his energy and naturally unique types. This was why he was currently unaware of how powerful the sacred jewel was. Although he had revealed it during his battle with the infected, Gustav only made the sacred jewel appear as a robot who was tasked with destroying the infected. He had still managed to hide that it can perform other tasks as he wouldn't want greedy eyes to covet it. He was still figuring the sacred jewel out, so he would never let anyone take it from him as it had the potential to cause havoc, just like how much havoc would be wrought if the world found out he could steal bloodlines. I will need to create time to test out its limits again. Unknown location, the grand capital city. A dark-skinned man with red scales surrounding his neck voiced out within a group of 5. We have to be careful. They must not catch on to this. A lady putting on dark goggles and clad in white suits stated. They want well get rid of the celebrity as well as the hundreds of thousands that will be attending. Another male in their group clad in white added. Good, what about the normal humans and Slarkovs that might attend? The lady in dark goggles questioned. Collateral damage. They should know not to attend an event hosted by such a species, especially when it is centered on their selfish existence. Normal humans and Slarkov who choose to support such deserve to perish alongside them. The dark-skinned man with reddish scales stated with a tone of absolutism. I agree. Within a dark area with gloomy clouds, in an infinite-looking pit beneath a group of 19 could be seen traversing a barely visible line far above the pit. They took steps forward one after the other, trying not to bump into each other with every movement. Be ready. It's coming again, Alevra shouted out from up front. Fush! Let out a loud breathe as he heard that and began to gather his energy. I could barely use any energy in this vicinity at the start, but looks like I'm starting to get the hang of it. Thought as his eyes let out a violet glow. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1120. The casualties are still a lot less than it would have. Indeed, Gustav responded while looking around. Gustav squinted his eyes as he spotted a couple of suspicious figures. In the conventional center, the concert was still ongoing, and even Yusha was unaware of the ongoing battle between the Jinxidus and the MBO. Gustav had told her beforehand to focus on her performance and make it like she usually would. He wanted to make sure there was no hint of suspicion that the Jinxidus could hold on to beforehand. She was currently in her domain with her mind on nothing else except for releasing beautiful melodies. She connected with the crowd as she continuously sang hits after hits that caused the fans to cheer loudly. P. Indian 0v1, C. The Pajuim was currently moving around as she stamped her left foot on the ground while performing one of her unreleased songs. Danger creeps, yet you're unfazed. The enemies flee. When you are freed. The fans bopped to her unreleased song as she sang with such a melodic tune that would make even angels jealous. Suddenly, Fyi, 2 figures in masked, leaped out of the crowd in Goddess Yusha's direction. This action had taken everyone by surprise, and the fans only reacted by the time they spotted weapons in the grasp of these 2 unknown masked figures. The instant they landed on the podium, a figure appeared right in between Yusha and the masked assailants. Not today. The cold voice of this figure drifted into their ears before they could even properly notice his facial features. Bang! Bang! Before they could both react, Gustav had already sent out 2 palm strikes, sending them flying back into the crowd. OSHI. I didn't control my strength. Gustav only noticed this after the attacks had hit. Since he knew he was injured, he had expected his strength to be weakened. Unfortunately, Kaya. The crowd up front yelled in terror as body parts and blood rained down upon them. Both figures had been blasted into pieces with a single palm strike each from Gustav. So much for trying to keep things under the wraps. the system chimed in. With the current incident getting displayed all across the world where the concert was being streamed, there was a huge uproar on social media. Two people just got blasted to pieces. I saw it live. Oh my god, is Goddess Yusha okay? Protect Goddess Yusha. If she is truly a goddess, she doesn't need protection. Just who is that guy? I think he was protecting her. As the live transmission got disconnected due to the incidents, the fans watching worldwide discussed about the possibilities all across social media platforms. Soft disbelief. Who had barely caught his breath from the last encounter, instantly channeled his energy once more and created a vortex underneath them. Foam. The pillar of flames that had risen this time was almost golden in color, extremely robust and intense as it gleamed dangerously, spewing balls of fire within as well. Fortunately, had managed to conjure the vortex wide enough and send these wild flames in another direction. However, things were about to take his unfortunate turn as Elevera sensed something once more. Two more are coming, she voiced out. It shouldn't be a problem if they're right underneath this one. The vortex will take care of them, Yonda stated. No, they will be side by side with the current one. The instant Elevera revealed this, everyone understood the reason for her worry. Here they come, she announced. Shit, make the vortex larger. Yonda shouted as he turned to face the back. I can't. Responded with trembling breath. Please visit Panda. N0VE1. Flames rose from far ahead and behind them at the same time. Since the vortex was unable to cover those areas, the flames were not cut out as they rose to unprecedented height, blocking their paths ahead and behind. The instant both pillar of flames reached their height, it began to spread from all sides towards them. Despite being hundreds of feet towards the left and right, it quickly expanded, reaching their location. Now it seemed like three pillar of flames had merged and the vortex beneath was unable to protect them from the hellfire encroaching from the sides. Endrick, who was far behind, raised a wall of telekinesis to block them from the flames approaching in that direction and proceeded to turn it into a barrier that encapsulated the group. Time to battle against Hell, Sheila voiced out playfully as she also activated her bloodline energy. Cracks appeared in midair as it looked like reality had turned into fragments of glass and surrounded the group of 19. The flames were prevented from their initial encroach with the joint efforts of Endrick and Sheila. Within the barrier created, the heat had tripled, which would roast a normal human to death, but they knew this was better than coming into contact with the flames. The sides were currently secure as well as underneath and above them, so the team didn't have to bother in the meantime. Until, I can't hold it for long. Sweat trickled down ES' dark face as he struggled to voice out. It's not ending yet. You have to hold on or we'll fail again. Fildhor yelled. Fucker. Why don't you try doing it yourself? Stated with a slightly pissed tone. I can't. Fildhor responded with a look of confusion. Then, kindly, shut the fuck up. Voiced out, causing Fildhor to turn away in embarrassment. Everyone brainstormed for an alternative to the merged pillars of flames, while tried keeping the vortex open for a little longer. I am letting go. I can't keep them open for any longer. Could feel his energy running dry due to the environment. Shit. Yonda voiced out with a tone of disappointment. Someone's coming, Elevera revealed as she turned around. Everyone let out sighs as they assumed one of the masters was coming to save them, which meant they were deemed failed already. And we were so close this time. Another one from the group lamented. Everyone was just as disappointed as they stared in the direction of the approaching person. All of a sudden, a flash of milky-colored light broke through the sea of flames. Zririath. The milky light spread across all the areas the flames covered. The moment it made contact with the flames, they would disappear. The flames was unable to affect the milky light. Instead, the light prevailed and swallowed up the flames at a rapid pace. Does any of the masters have this type of bloodline ability? Rosalind questioned with a confused expression. I don't recognize it as well, Fildhor stated. The others were just as confused, while Endrick's face displayed an expression of suspicion as the flames disappeared upon contact with the milky energy. He was the only one with the look of suspiciousness instead of confusion. EE, who was breathing like a half-dead rabid dog, let out a low chuckle as he released the vortexes. After what seemed like many seconds, what was left of the flames finally began to die down. Relieved expressions appeared on the faces of Eldris and the rest, while the other teammates still had looks of confusion. Upon clearing completely, the group spotted a figure walking towards them on the thin line with good balance. "Who is?" Yonda was about speaking when the figure visibility turned clearer. Their eyes widened as they noticed the figure was sporting a dirty blonde shoulder-length hair and clad in a red jacket and blue pants. "Gustav? Crimson?" Finks voiced with a tone of immense disbelief. "I heard you guys were struggling to get past this stage, so I decided to join," Gustav voiced out as a little smile appeared on his face upon sighting EE and the others. "Oh damn, it's truly him?" Another one of them voiced out his disbelief. "The monster is smiling? I thought he never smiled." Some of them had this thought as they watched his approach. "The legendary Gustav is here." They couldn't believe their eyes despite already being aware. Witnessing his prowess shook them to their very bones, which very much proved it could be no other than the well-renowned Gustav Crimson. "Good-looking MF, what took you so long?" E yelled out as a broad smile appeared on his face. "Gustav!" Angie yelled with a sweet smile, unable to contain her excitement. She would have jumped into his embrace if not for the current situation. "Gus. Yo Gus. Rival. Sniff sniff. Welcome back, Master." Eldris, Timmy, Rhea, Falco, Vera, and the others voiced out one after the other. They weren't joking. They are truly familiar with him. Yonda and the others who doubted initially stared at the proof playing out in front of them. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 11:21. I and Rhea will handle the other side of the area we were designated to. Timmy said as well. "Glade and I will prevent the slum dwellers from getting killed before you guys are done with rounding them up," Falco voiced out. "Be careful because some of them may be in disguise," Gustav reminded. "Roger that," Glade stated. "Eldris will keep an eye out for what anyone may have missed, just like Elevera. You two are in charge till we're done with handling the slum dwellers issue," Gustav announced. Everyone nodded in response. "EE." Gustav turned to stare at EE while calling out to him. "Let's do this," he added. EE's face beamed up with a smile as tears gathered in his eye. "H&M, let's do this," E voiced while wiping his eyes. "SSS, he is a part of us, so it does count. Stop delaying us and move." Vin was starting to sound incensed. Seeing the way everyone was staring at him with a look of disapproval, Yonda finally decided to keep quiet. "If we were considered to have failed, one of the masters would have already appeared before us," Eldris added as the group began moving once more. This was a training course after all, so they couldn't afford to lose the ISOP candidates due to training. One of the 4 masters in charge of training the team would show up before anyone got grilled, but that would also spell their failure. At this point, they were less than 20 feet away from reaching the end of the line where a portal that would get them out of this vicinity was situated. Surprisingly, they advanced till they arrived at the end of the line without any more intensive situations. The group got into the sky blue-colored portal one after the other till only Gustav was left. Gustav paused for a bit and turned around to scrutinize this dark region once more. "This is definitely a good training spot. They'll have to come back here," he said internally before turning back around and moving into the portal. Zian, he arrived on solid ground where the others could also be seen standing up ahead. They were currently behind a massive mansion with a tip that stabbed into the sky. It was right in between the multiple weird-looking regions in the distance. "You all have successfully passed the 4th course," a lady in red outfit and a weird-looking helmet stated with a strong tone. "Yes. Finally. We did it." Sounds of cheers were heard all around as the group of 20 donned smiley looks. They had failed this particular course so many times due to the fact that every single one of them had to advance to the end of the line without losing a single person. They always lost 1 or 2 teammates, which was the major reason for their flop. Someone as strong as Sheila would have passed this course long ago if she was the only one required to transverse across the thin line. However, as it had to be a team movement without anyone getting left behind. Individual strength was not the major attribute needed. I see you've all met your captain. Mistress Beatrice's statement suddenly caused the place to quieten. Captain? Is it him? Everyone turned to stare in Gustav's direction at this point. Your captain is indeed Gustav Crimson, she confirmed, causing everyone to display looks of awe. They all suspected it, and Gustav's gang was definitely sure of it, but some were still thinking it might be a teammate with the highest bloodline rank. Seeing as he helped to make sure you guys passed the 4th course, I'm sure no one has objections? She questioned while looking around. I do. Oh yes, Yonda. As expected. Mistress Beatrice responded with a sure note of distaste. He hasn't. Yonda was about to start listing reasons when Mistress Beatrice interrupted. Hasn't been available? Hasn't trained with you lots? Isn't a team player if he hasn't played with the team? Mistress Beatrice listed while clicking her tongue. Yonda found himself speechless for a bit after this subtle trolling from Mistress Beatrice. He has proven today that he can carry the team in harsh times, but of course if you're doubting and wish to take on the role of the captain, a duel between both of you can surely be arranged. Everyone's eyes widened slightly as they heard Mistress Beatrice suggest this method. Yonda was pretty strong since he managed to come 2nd place in the analysis result, but everyone had very high doubts his ability could match that of Gustav's, especially after what they witnessed today. Yonda was silent for many seconds, causing everyone to stare in his direction. Gustav, who had been silent and unbothered at this time, finally began to move towards Yonda's position. Is he coming to me? Yonda questioned internally as he glanced briefly in Gustav's direction. Please visit Panda. N0VE1. Co. Gustav arrived in front of him and looked down at him. You want the position of the captain? Gustav questioned. You don't deserve the position, Yonda responded with an unyielding tone. Sure. Are you willing to change that? They'll give you the opportunity to try, Gustav stated with a benevolent tone that almost sounded like mockery in the ears of everyone. Don't think I can't defeat you, Gustav Crimson. Yonda gritted his teeth as he voiced out. Gustav leaned down further and suddenly released a bit of his energy while peering into Yonda's eyes. Eek! Everyone felt a chill crawl down their spine as unfathomable the energy spread forth from Gustav's frame, causing even Mistress Beatrice to take a step back in wariness. The little spill of energy felt like an unmovable divine presence. What in the world is he? This question ran through the minds of everyone who hadn't met Gustav prior to this. I didn't say you couldn't, Gustav finally responded after staring for a bit. He raised his head and withdrew his energy as a smirk appeared on his face. You best issue the duel quickly before I leave with my team, Gustav added before turning around and walking away. Huh. Everyone besides Mistress Beatrice was confused by what he had just said, but he was out of sight before long. Eldris, Angie, Matilda, Vera, Ria, Elevera, Glade and Falco. Are you okay, Falco? Mistress Beatrice questioned as she noticed something after listing out a number of names. Yeah, I'm fine, Falco, who was initially holding onto his head and rubbing it, quickly answered. Just a slight headache, he smiled. Mixed bloods never develop headaches. That's a human thing. This thought crossed everyone's mind, causing them to stare at Falco suspiciously. I'll be okay after sleeping for a bit, Falco added. You should probably get checked to be sure you're completely all right, Mistress Beatrice instructed. All right, I will. Falco gave in to avoid more questions. Why did you call our names, Mistress Beatrice? Angie questioned. You will be leaving the training center with Captain Crimson on a mission, she announced. Oh. Everyone now understood the reason for Gustav's last statement. The higher-ups are labeling it a field assignment for the participants, so he is allowed to take you with him. The others here will be given another filed assignment, Mistress Beatrice explained. It turned out Gustav had finally showed up here to take his team with him for the upcoming mission regarding the Jinxidus. They had given him permission to do so, which meant it wouldn't be a problem for him to take them out. The gang had looks of excitement as they realized they would be finally leaving this place for the first time in over 4 months. What of Indrik? Why isn't he added? Eldris questioned. Yeah, why didn't you mention this little buddy's name? Voiced out as well. Captain Crimson picked the team and it didn't include Indrik. After saying this, Mistress Beatrice stepped into a bluish glowing portal and disappeared. Why would Gustav not pick Indrik? Does he still have bad blood with him? They seemed okay. What happened? Sigh. The gang were confused as to why this happened, but they knew they wouldn't get an answer unless they inquired for Gustav personally. Where did he go? Rhea questioned. He went in the direction of the dark hold. Eldris answered from what he recalled. What? He went back there? Matilda voiced out with an awry expression. What is he thinking? That place is too dangerous without the supervision of any of the masters. Angie's expression turned really troubled as she voiced out. Let's head there too, Alevra suggested. On it. A vortex opened up in front, and they all jumped in without wasting time. The dark hold. This happened to be the same location the group of 20 had successfully transversed through after encountering multiple dangerous situations. Gustav's figure could be seen deep within the heart of this dark and gloomy region. However, unlike the previous time, he wasn't positioned on any thin line. Daily task, 2/3, successfully completed. Use flight ability in the vicinity of the stronghold square root, plus 700,000 EXP. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1122, Daily Task, 2/3, successfully completed. Use flight ability in the vicinity of the stronghold square root, plus 700,000 EXP. Gustav floated in mid-air within his dark vicinity bearing endless gloomy clouds as he stared at the notification panel. I would have failed this daily task if I arrived here later than today. Gustav's face darkened as he voiced out. To think you were telling me to travel to space with the limited time, and you still had such a task in store for me, Tisk. Gustav sounded like he bore a grudge. Your actions were calculated, can't blame me. The system cackled while responding. This place truly sucks energy. I guess that's why they were weaker than normal. Gustav could feel his energy draining at a rapid pace while he flew. Such drainage would make him incapable of activating hover more than a couple of times if he hadn't leveled up recently. How was such a place designed? Gustav questioned internally as he looked down. God Eyes has been activated. His irises emitted a mixture of golden, green, and crimson glows as he stared down into what looked like a bottomless abyss. Streams of energy are connected like thread and leading down there, Gustav muttered. Serzrayahai. Gustav's sight phased through multiple layers of darkness beneath, traveling across thousands of feet in an instant. The darkness only increased the lower his sight traveled, yet he could still see as clear as day due to the ability of God Eyes, as well as the glowing strings of energy that were visible to the naked eyes. Fuhum vuwum. His sight would pass through multiple brewing colors of flames, causing his face to show expressions of understanding. So that's how they're formed. Despite the flames still getting created thousands of feet beneath, his eyes could feel a subtle burn. This made him uncomfortable, but Gustav carried on with his gaze into the bottomless abyss. It's really deep but not bottomless. Gustav was able to tell after his sight reached a particular distance. He wasn't able to get to the bottom due to God Eyes reaching its limit, but he was sure there was a bottom, and he was curious as to what was down there. Something that drains the energy of everyone in its territory and covets it too. I have to get down there. Gustav finally gave in to his curiosity. Hover has been deactivated. The instant he deactivated Hover, a violet-colored vortex appeared about 200 feet towards his north. Zoom. Angie, Eldris, and the others appeared from within the vortex and landed on a floating telekinesis platform Indrik had created. Someone's falling over there. Alevra suddenly called their attention to the direction she pointed at. It has to be Gustav. Take us there, Angie yelled out with a look of worry. I can't see. How far away is it? Questioned while channeling his energy once more. No time, I'm going after him. Fush. Angie's figure had disappeared the instant she said this, so the gang only heard echoes of her words lingering in the air. Don't? None of them were able to stop her as she had already disappeared before they even heard the complete statement. She had sped towards the ledge of the telekinetic platform and leapt in Gustav's direction. Everyone hold on. Eldris quickly voiced out before anyone else could make rash decisions. Gustav is not stupid. If he got into such a situation by himself, he definitely knows how to get out of it, Eldris stated. Everyone's faces lit up with looks of clarification and understanding as they heard this. They were worried due to the fact that they knew just how dangerous this region was, so they had rushed here without a second thought just in case Gustav was in danger. A Levera announcement of a falling figure upon their arrival made things even worse, but now that Eldris had said this, they all came to a realization. It's Gustav. What about Angie? She might be in trouble since she went after him, Matilda stated. Let's get closer to the falling point, Eldris suggested. Itzy nodded and opened another vortex to transport them to the exact place Gustav fell from. Fuyum Gustav's clothes flapped due to wind as he free fell into the depths of the dark hole. He felt multiple presences after deactivating hover and beginning his fall, but he decided not to pay it any heed. He made some motions with his arms to further increase the speed at which he fell into this abyss. Gustav had deactivated God Eyes, but he could still see and sense his vicinity properly. The lower he fell, the more he could sense the darkness getting thicker, almost like it was turning solid. However, he would occasionally pass through areas where flames were forming due to concentration of absorbed energy within this abyss. Atomic disintegration has been activated. Gustav's entire frame became coated with milky-colored energy as he spotted gigantic greenish flames forming up ahead. There was no way to go around it, so he decided to go through it. FYI, his body phased right through and continued on within the flames for another 70 feet before he escaped the flames and arrived in total darkness once more. Although the flames that had been concentrating above was pretty massive, they were unable to cause any damage to Gustav as the atomic disintegration made him phase through easily. The illumination only managed to cover a short distance, so darkness was upon him once more as he descended. Thicker darkness. Please visit Panda. N0VE1. Imhum? Gustav mumbled as he sensed something. Someone's falling? He turned his head to stare upwards while still descending. God Eyes have been activated. Gustav's sight traveled past the flames he had just phased through and went further upwards. His eyes widened as he spotted the silver-haired figure falling. The flames! She's headed straight for the flames. Wings sprouted out of Gustav's back at this point as his body paused its descent. Double speed has been activated. A ferocious glint could be seen at the corner of Gustav's eyes as he suddenly blasted upwards with immense speed. Fuhium, he tore a hole right through the condensing flames up ahead and arrived right before Angie, who was currently coated in a silver glow. Her arms were moving rapidly, generating winds that made her descend at a faster pace. However, the moment Gustav arrived before her, he grabbed hold of her waist and flew upwards. Thioyu, cracking sounds rang out as Gustav and Angie's figure ascending with immense speed. It seemed like they were breaking through solid darkness as they ascended. While he was flying at extreme speed, to Angie it looked like time had frozen. She had been taken by surprise initially, but currently she tilted her face, and her horns came into contact with Gustav's forehead as they flew upwards. Gustav was about to say something when she placed her lips on his mid-flight. Yeah, we should probably try to go down there, Falco stated as the gang stood on another telekinetic platform. Not a good idea. Our bloodline energy is. While Timmy was responding, Alevera spoke. Something's coming. The instant she voiced out, a sound like booming thunder ripping through the air reverberated across the vicinity. Thrara, in the next moment, two figures blasted forth from the next layer of darkness beneath them. Panda, and OVE1 Gustav. Angie. The gang yelled out as they spotted both of them. Looks like they're fine, Alevera stated. They look more than fine. Matilda coughed lightly as she stated. My boy is at it again. E chuckled. I guess he has more energy in other aspects as well, he added. Get a room, you two, Timmy yelled out. They separate at this point and Gustav proceeded to descend upon the telekinetic platform. Angie's face had turned beet red at this point as she realized they had witnessed both of them exchanging saliva. Why are you guys here? Gustav questioned. We came because of you. We thought you'd be in trouble. This region is dangerous, they answered. I know. I was checking something, Gustav stated. Daily task, 3/3, completed successfully. Travel across 50,000 feet within the dark hold without activating Lightning Blitz square root. Rewards, daily task successful, Gustav noted internally as he spotted the notifications. Now I can make use of it. We can see you're okay now. I guess there was no need for us to worry, Ildris nodded. Are you gonna brief us on the mission? Timmy inquired. Sure, when I get back. Gustav's leaped forward immediately after saying this. Lightning Blitz has been activated. Before anyone could even respond to that, he turned into a streak and streaked downwards into the bottomless-looking abyss. Why does he always embrace danger? Falco shook his head. Gustav found himself within deep darkness in the next instant after arriving close to 200 miles beneath. It felt like his body was in a puddle as he struggled to move. Chapter 11:23 Do Not Purchase. Refresh previous chapter. He waved his hand and realized he was at least 5 times slower than normal. God eyes have been activated. He peered downwards once more. Still a bit distant from the bottom, but I can see it now. I will almost be completely hindered by the time I arrive down there. Gustav realized this. If he tried to get to the bottom through conventional means, there was a probability he wouldn't be able to move anymore after reaching a particular point because he could run out of energy during the struggle. Lightning Blitz has been activated. Gustav activated Lightning Blitz once more and instantly arrived at the bottom of this abyss. As expected, upon landing atop solid ground, Gustav found it extremely tasking to take a step. Despite the difficulty, he managed to look downwards and reactivate God eyes. The entire ground floor is the cause, Gustav said internally as he took note of the intricate patterns within the solid bottom. The entire ground floor had weird glowing marks that spread across the place, and Gustav could feel a cyclonic mixture of energy and anti-energy coming from it. It turned out the bottom of the abyss was the cause for the turn out of this entire realm. The intricate mixture of energy and anti-energy caused energy to be siphoned from living creatures, especially mixed bloods, and even blocked their connection to the energy within them. It transmuted the siphoned energy into what this realm was turned to, and was also the cause for the intense pillar of flames that would occasionally rise into the sky. This could be really useful. As Gustav studied the unfamiliar ground floor, he proceeded to squat. It was almost like he was unbothered that this was the most dangerous part of this dark hole. There's something else here. Gustav's hair stood on end as he suddenly sensed something. Within an unknown region, hail-like stones could be seen falling from the sky as a ragged and cloaked figure was spotted traversing an icy land. He dragged some chains along with him as he took one step after the other. These chains were massive. A link was twice the size of human head, and this figure seemed to be pulling it along with him as he took steps forward. Following the links of the chain, a gigantic beast-like creature was connected to the chains. It seemed like it was lifeless, as the human-like figure dragged it along without any defiance from the creature. The icicles that had formed on the icy ground were being smashed into splinters by the body of this massive creature as it got dragged across the ground. The hail-like stones that fell from the sky were sometimes as large as a building. However, when any of them fell in the direction of the human figures and massive beast, they would smash into an unknown and invisible force before they could make contact. The human figure continued forward undisturbed by the unfavorable condition of the environment. After some time, a medieval-looking city could be spotted up ahead with a massive-looking kingdom-like gate and walls hundreds of feet tall. The gates were shut, but multiple guards could be spotted, standing on different corners of the walls. "He's here," one of the guards stated as he spotted the figure in the distance. The other guards also became on the alert the instant they spotted the figure arriving with the massive creature. In a few, the human figure arrived at the massive kingdom-like gate with the creature behind him. He slowly let go of the massive chains and raised his head. "I brought it back alive like the tarmac instructed," the human figure voiced out with a light masculine tone. "Sir Luches, what do we do?" One of the guards on the walls standing beside a decorated guard with dark cape questioned. Sir Luches had a look of disbelief along with the other guards positioned on the wall. "Send word to the tarmac now about the ongoing situation," he commanded. One of the guards nodded and proceeded to climb down the wall and disappeared into the medieval-like city. "We might have no choice but to let him in now," The tarmac never thought he would be able to complete this task, Sir Luchin muttered with his face still retaining the expression of disbelief. He was gone for many months. We thought he might be dead already, another guard stated. I cannot believe he managed to accomplish the task. Others couldn't hide their confusion as well. What's taking so long? The human figure standing in front of the massive gate questioned. Pardon our impudence, but the tarmac must confirm that the task has been accomplished himself, so I implore your patience, Lord Eric, Sir Luch's voiced apologetically. It's Indrik, not Eric. The human figure pulled the cloak off his head while replying. My apologies, Lord Eric, Sir Luch's stated once more. Veins appeared on Indrik's forehead for an instant before he heaved a sigh and responded, Just forget it. The tarmac has arrived. A loud voice announced after a few seconds. Indrik looked up once more and spotted a 7-foot muscular frame in golden and silver armor, standing right beside Sir Luch's. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. Co. Sir Luch's bowed in respect upon this muscular female appearance. I brought what you asked, Indrik voiced while gesturing at the massive building-sized creature right behind him. The tarmac, who was a beautiful and muscular-looking lady with a scar ripping from her left cheek to chin, stood in place with a scowl on her face. Deactivate the barrier, the tarmac instructed. Deactivate the barrier. Sir Luch's yelled out the command. In the next instant, a vibrating sound rang out like something powering down. Zeanan, a dome that surrounded this part of the city, turned visible for an instant before disappearing. Thumb bang. The tarmac leapt and landed right in front of Indrik. Indrik, who was less than 6 feet tall, was at least 3 heads shorter than the tarmac. I shall inspect it now, she voiced out before moving past him. Be quick before it reawakens, Indrik advised. The massive creature, which was dark brownish in color with a mixture of furs and scales on different areas of its body, was wrapped by these massive chains. The tarmac touched a part of its body and nodded her head. Open the gates, she said before turning around. Follow me, she instructed Indrik while proceeding to walk forward. Indrik picked up the end of the chain and began dragging the creature forward once more. Finally, he heaved a sigh of relief as he followed the tarmac into the city. We're leaving now. See you guys later, Eldris said to the other teammates as they all stood in front of the house they had been staying in all this time. All right then, you guys go ahead. I guess the rest of us will be given separate missions. Asbestos bid them farewell, as well as some other teammates. Gustav and the gang were all clad in their MBO uniforms at this point, ready to leave. We might be back in 2 weeks. Good thing only one more training course is left, Falco voiced out. A portal opened up for them in the next instant, and the 10 proceeded to walk in. Gustav didn't bother bidding any of them farewell, as he wasn't accustomed to them like the other despite having spent a day here already. Zayn, they arrived above what looked like an unending Iceland region. Finally back in the real world, Angie said with a smile. I thought I'd lose my mind, Glade voiced out. I think I lost mine, Falco said with a low tone. What was that, Falco? Didn't hear you, Eldris questioned. Nothing. A smile appeared on Falco's face. I'm glad we finally have a mission to take care of, he added. Gustav, who was standing just a few feet away, glanced at Falco suspiciously before looking forward. Our ride is here, Gustav voiced out as an aircraft approached their direction from up ahead. So what is this mission about? Eldris questioned as they flew back to the MBO tower in Plankton City. Jinxidus. This was the first word Gustav uttered. Everyone's faces turned serious the instant they heard this. The upcoming mission is an extermination raid with the purpose of dealing immense damage to the terrorist group. If successful, this might potentially put an end to them, Gustav revealed. Oh? Looks like it's going to be a major mission, E stated with a look of interest. It is, the Jinxidus have been silent for a while. They haven't made a move in months, Gustav voiced out. Besides sending assassins to murder you, of course, the system chipped in within Gustav's head. Isn't that a good thing? Angie questioned with a slightly confused look after Gustav's statement. No, it isn't. A group as hyperactive as theirs going silent for months is giant red flag, Gustav replied. Chapter 1124. This would mean whatever catastrophe they have in mind is potentially hazardous enough to cause immense destruction. They're planning something big, Gustav explained. Their faces went from expressions of surprise to understanding then contemplative. So we just have to make sure we strike first before they can implement whatever plans they already have in motion? Falco questioned. That's our plan. Since we might not be able to unravel their plots before it's too late, we hope this operation is damaging enough to ruin everything, and who knows, we might get more information in the process, Gustav responded. What exactly is the plan, and which location are we implementing it? Eldris proceeded to ask. The operation is beginning next week in Arabia City. Gustav revealed this first. Arabia City? Expression noticeable turned disturbed as he voiced out. Yes, Arabia City, according to intelligence, is the location where they've managed to create a large underground network, Gustav stated. Shit, that's my home, voiced with a low tone. What? Everyone exclaimed with a looks of surprise upon hearing that. Yeah. Could understand their disbelieving expressions. We all know Capital City is notorious for having mixed bloods, ganglords, and slums where people with lower privileges reside, so it makes sense that one of their hideouts is located here despite the being an organization based on hate for mixed bloods, Gustav voiced out with a logical tone. Arabia City was amongst 3 poorest cities in the world with slum dwellers. This city was void of resources like the others, so it had not prospered as much as other cities on Earth. Since it's where I grew up, he'll be sure to give proper guide, said with a nod. Everyone could sense a faint feeling of melancholy from after he voiced out. You should definitely introduce us to your family when we get there, Angie worded with a warm expression. Oh sure. He'll introduce you guys to my little sister and mom. Nodded with a smile. And we should most likely get them out of there as well, since it would literally turn into a war with the Jinxidus, Eldris suggested. That will be taken care of when we get there. Don't forget we'll be sniffing out the Jinxidus in the city as a team, and would have to play our part by covering specific areas. Since we want to also gather information about other major hideouts that may exist, killing members of the Jinxidus should be avoided, except that is the only option available, Gustav continued briefing them. The group spent about 3 hours flying before they arrived at the border, a slightly run-down city. From high heights in the sky, one could see broken-down buildings and small rough structures ones in disastrous-looking areas. The bad areas seemed to be populated by a large number of people who were poorly dressed. However, there were still areas that looked very good, and such areas were less populated. This view reminded Gustav of Lineage City, where he completed his first ever mission. The difference was, there wasn't a civil war here, so this city always looked this way. This is where grew up? Most of them were still surprised. Memories were playing out in EE's head as he stared down at the city. See you soon, Mom, Sarah, said internally. The aircraft made a swift turn and headed towards a particular forest area on the far left of the border. They were currently in camouflage mode, so the aircraft couldn't be tracked or spotted by any device. Few minutes later, they touched down at an unknown part of the forest. There's nothing here. Matilda looked around the forestry area with a confused expression. There is, Gustav answered while turning toward the left. Everyone followed his movement, but could only see tall trees up ahead along with leaves of the ground. Gustav kept moving forward and suddenly disappeared. A discognitive barrier. Falco instantly understood what had just happened. Let's go, guys, he added. Everyone moved forward as well, and upon reaching the same position where Gustav disappeared, they could feel a field opening up for them. On the outside, it looked like they disappeared, but on the inside, they were still in the same location, which originally looked different from what was portrayed outside. They found themselves in a secluded spot within the forest void of trees and filled with bungalow-like structures. MBO officers could be seen moving back and forth within this area. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. Co. Imsum spotted Gustav and the others and continued on with whatever they were initially doing. You have finally arrived, Officer Crimson. One of the officers in brownish uniform voiced out upon spotting them. Officer Sin, Gustav nodded at him. They'll show your team to their temporary quarters. Officer Darmark asked for you to show up at the temporary base upon your arrival, Officer Sin informed. The officer proceeded to take Eldris, and the others in a particular direction. Gustav kept walking forward on his own at this point. He stepped into the largest tent-like building within the vicinity and spotted a trio positioned around a square shared floating holographic projection. Just like a regular base, there were other officers around dealing with computerized works, but it was obvious these three were the main leaders in charge of the operation. Officers Darmark, Shuri, and Colt, Gustav greeted upon his arrival within. These three faces were familiar ones, as the men and women already had a sort of banter with Gustav weeks back when he was trying to become a part of this operation, especially Officer Colt, who was against the idea of having Gustav. "You have finally decided to join us." Officer Colt crunched his nose as he stated with a distasteful tone. "Yes, Officer Colt. My team is here with me," Gustav answered with an unbothered expression. "Officer Crimson, we expect total compliance when the operation begins, as every team would be assigned specific locations," Officer Shuri voiced with a tone of caution. "I and my team shall do our best on this mission in handling the Jinxidus," Gustav responded. "No stepping out of line will be tolerated," Officer Colt warned. "If handling or capturing the Jinxidus members is considered stepping out of lines, then Officer Colt can be sure I and my teammates will be not just stepping but running out of line," Gustav announced before smirking. "You!" Officer Colt gritted his teeth and was about to speak when Officer Darmark interrupted. "I'm sure Officer Crimson means he will do the job assigned to him and his squad. There is no need for unnecessary bickering," Officer Darmark stated. The place turned silent for a bit as Gustav remained unfazed despite the glare from Officer Colt. "The operation will begin in the next 2 days. In the meantime, we've been sending spies into Arabia City to gather info and make sure there are no changes to any info we've gathered so far. We have a list of places we'll be specifically swarming on that day," Officer Shuri revealed. "Interesting. An officer from my squad is native of this city. Since he most likely knows this city better than anyone, he could also infiltrate and spy to gather info," Gustav suggested. "That is not necessary, Officer Crimson. We have it covered." Officer Colt instantly turned down the proposal. "I am practically giving you the perfect man for such a job, but you're turning it down. I thought you wanted the operation to be flawless?" Gustav's expression remained unbothered as he responded despite the rejection. "The operation will be flawless without the insertion of your man," Officer Colt stated. "Fine," Gustav shrugged. "Anyways, I need to get his family out of there, so I will have to visit the city earlier than intended," he added. "We cannot allow that, Officer Crimson," Officer Shuri stated. "When the operation begins, there is a high chance of civilians getting harmed. I must make sure my teammate family is far from such danger," Gustav responded with a strong tone. "I'm sorry, but we truly cannot allow that, Officer Crimson." Officer Darmark shook his head. "Why?" "It jeopardizes the mission for you to take care of such a task. Then I shall send someone else to do so. We can't let any officer do such. Anything that jeopardizes the mission cannot be allowed. If it was revealed that people were suddenly leaving the city, it could raise flags for the Jinxidus. It's just one family, no big deal. From one family to friends who they may also care for, and others find out as well and get compelled to leave, which might trigger a chain of effects. We cannot risk it. So if it was your own family there, you'd leave them to be endangered?" There were a few seconds of silence after Gustav asked this question. "Pan de N0, VE1 hypocrites. Since that's all, I shall take my leave now," Gustav proceeded to add before turning around. "Officer Crimson," Officer Darkmark suddenly called out to him. Chapter 11:25. Gustav paused and turned to the side while raising an eyebrow. "There's something we need you to do," Officer Darkmark stated. Gustav turned to face them once more with an expression of curiosity. "I'm all ears." Minutes later, Gustav sat within a small spaced room with the others surrounding him. "They just needed me to verify some things. The operation will be starting in 2 to 3 days' time, and like I mentioned earlier, we will be assigned a specific area in the city as a group," Gustav stated. "Oh, nice. Is there anywhere to train during this time?" "Yeah, you can use the brain emulator to train here in the meantime," Gustav responded. "They are most likely going to give us a location they consider the least dangerous, but my goal is to make sure not a single one of the Jinxidus members escape from the city alive," Gustav added. Did something happen?" Eldris could sense that there was more about this declaration than met the eye. "Nothing much," Those bastards got on my nerves, so now they have to pay the price. Gustav didn't inform them about the attempted abduction or the assassins they had been sending after him in the past few months. Looks like these fuckers are gonna get it. He was already feeling bad in advance for the Jinxidus members that would fall into Gustav's hand. You're coming with me, Gustav suddenly voiced out. What? Said with a look of confusion. I'm infiltrating your city. I need you to join me, Gustav revealed before standing to his feet. But why? Asked. They didn't agree to get your family out of there, so we'll be doing it ourselves, in secret, Gustav replied. Face turned serious upon hearing that. Wasn't initially bothered since Gustav said he would take care of it, but upon hearing this he understood. We might need to also check the city out because I want you to identify any escape points after we've gotten your family out. Also, just to make sure things run smoothly, we'd spy on suspicious areas till the operation begins, Gustav revealed. You guys will need to cover for both of us while we're gone. We will get back before the operation begins, he added. Understood, Angie and the others responded. When do we leave? Inquired. Now, Gustav answered. Flesh warping has been activated. 2 dark-skinned men had arrived within a run-down part of Arabia City many minutes later. They looked like twins due to their similar appearances, but they were both clad in ragged clothes. This area was one of the slums within Arabia City. Despite the city being one of the poorest in the world, it still covered a large area of land. Everywhere both of them passed, beggars could be sighted along with people dressed just as bad or even worse. Adults and children living in the streets under tent-like structures or just laying on the bare ground. Bang, bang, bang. Arriving at one of the corners, a teenage boy was being beaten up in front of a stall. Gustav and paused and stared in that direction, but none of them moved to help. You bastard thief, Bam. This will teach you not to steal from me again, Bam. Worthless just like your siblings. Bam. Wanted to make a move at this point, but Gustav placed his hand on EE's left shoulder and shook his head. Clenched his fist as witnessing such a scene brought back unpleasant memories. However, they couldn't make a move as it would potentially blow their cover. After a few more seconds, a middle-aged woman jumped in front of the boy with tears in her eyes. Marcus, please leave him be, she cried. He's a thief, he should be dealt with, the bald store owner said after pausing his blows. Please, he won't do it again, she kept begging. After some time, the stall owner got tired of the woman getting in the way and left after letting out a humph. Next time I will beat him to death. Please visit Panda, N0V1. Co. The woman proceeded to carry her half-dead teenage son away from the premises while Gustav and East remained in place for a few. Nothing has changed, he muttered with a dispirited tone. Gustav had never seen look this down before. He was always in high spirits. It was no doubt that he was the light of the team, since he would always find a way to cheer everyone on and make jokes out of serious situations. It was quite unbelievable that someone with such a personality originated from such a gloomy and despairable environment. Is that a normal scenario? Gustav already knew the answer but still asked. Pretty much, he let out a sigh after responding as his mind traveled back to the past. Big brother, I'm hungry. A2, and the half-feet-tall kid yelled out in the middle of an area with demolished structures. His big brother, who also happened to be a 4-feet-tall scrawny-looking black kid, smiled at him and proceeded to touch his head. What do you want to eat, Emma? He asked. I want some cornbread, please. Despite his tattered looks, Emma had an excited expression after responding. One cornbread coming up. Wait here, Emma's big brother said before turning around and running in the opposite direction. Emma waited for about an hour before his big brother returned. Big brother. He had an excited look upon spotting his brother approaching from up ahead. His excited look quickly died down as he noticed his big brother looked way roughed up than normal. Bruises and visible blood stains that were absent initially could be spotted on exposed parts of his body. Emma was a kid that didn't know any better, but seeing this, he could tell something was wrong. Big brother. What happened? He asked. Nothing. Emma's big brother managed to hide the pain in his eyes with a smile as he arrived before him. PN0VE1 calm, one cornbread is promised, he added while passing a triangular-shaped piece of bread to Emma. Wow, thanks, big brother. Emma's excited expression returned as he accepted the bread and jumped into his big brother's embrace. Ugh! Emma's big brother grimaced in pain upon the collision from the hug, but he quickly masked it once more. Haha, make sure you enjoy, he added. Have some, big brother. Emma split the bread in half, but his big brother declined. Why is it this bad? Gustav's question brought out of his reminiscent state. The world abandoned this hellhole, and the government, as well as the rich, decided to hold on whatever profit can be dredged out of this place without sharing, answered before they proceeded to resume walking. Gustav was still curious as to how managed to join the MBO test phases and become an MBO officer despite originating from such a place. He was curious, but he didn't ask because he could tell EE's mood was affected by this place and didn't want to dig into things might find uncomfortable. A side of him was bothered that after all this time they had been friends. He never tried to find out more about AE's background. They both kept walking silently past a number of places where fights broke out or people were scrounging for any little piece of food they could find. It was not a pretty sight within these slums. The number of teenage kids were far greater than the number of adults. Gustav had never witnessed such a sight and wondered if they hadn't gone back in time. Despite observing the environment, Gustav couldn't tell if there was something out of place or find suspicious situations since this environment was not one he was familiar with. Everything here was practically out of place, and it seemed this was a normal thing. Only he would be able to make better observations since he was a native of this city. We're close, stated. Gustav looked up ahead as they arrived in a street. This place was fairly better than the other places they had come across on their way here. More buildings could be spotted in this area, and if one kept going further, they would arrive in the more luxurious part of the city. After walking for a few more minutes, they arrived before a bungalow house by the left side of the street. Calm, calm, calm. He knocked thrice and waited. Coming. A feminine voice resounded from within. Catch him. Chapter next. The instant the door opened, they spotted the muzzle of an energy gun pointed at them. A beautiful and dark-skinned looking girl with braids, as well as a slightly chubby cheek, was standing at the entrance. The weapon happened to be in her grasp. Who are you two, and what do you want? She questioned with a tone of hostility. Chapter 11:26. Refresh S. Whip. His wings phased into his back in the next instant. Gustav began to fall towards the sea of roots below in a vertical format. As he closed the proximity between himself and the vines which were towering tall into the sky, they began to react. Thy roots began to shoot upwards in his direction, in a bid to catch him in their snares. Gustav wrapped his arms around himself and began to spin very quickly as he dropped from the air. This made his speed of descent increase, and also caused the roots that shot towards him to miss. Bang! In a couple of seconds, he landed on the ground. He had managed to slither into the gaps of these roots and land on solid ground. However, the moment he did, the roots around him reacted intensely and surrounded his figure to entrap him. Cognitive concealment, Gustav whispered. His presence instantly disappeared the instant he voiced that out. The roots paused in the next moment. Every one of them that reacted waved slowly in the air in confusion. After a while, they returned to their previous state, and Gustav was left. Those idiots that thought they could escape. Gustav's perception spread out and covered the entire city in nearly an instant. He could sense the MBO officers who were still struggling to stay alive, but were already on their last breaths. He could also sense the pile of mixed bloods corpses trapped in different parts of the roots covering the entire city. They belonged to both people of the city as well as MBO officers. Only a few humans and a couple of mixed bloods in the upper district are still alive, but not for long, the system voiced. The oxygen has turned sparse because of the roots, so even though the humans' life force aren't getting sapped because they have no bloodline, they will eventually die from lack of oxygen, Gustav analyzed. The Jenxidists don't seem to care about killing even the ones they claim to be making the world better for, as long as they get rid of the MBO and mixed bloods, the system added. Might as well end them now. Gustav could sense even the ones that were currently trying to leave the city. The Jenxidist members were not in any way trapped by the roots. Some of them even toyed with some of the nearly dead MBO officers since they were trapped. They laughed at their state and poked them repeatedly. Partial collapsal transformation has been activated. Gustav opened his eyes at this point as his entire body turned greenish and he bloated. Multiple hands phased out of his body and he clasped his palms together. Pa. GHRRHHHH. GBBGGGGBBBHHHH. The ground began quaking intensely in the next instant. Everyone within the city and even in the slums could feel the intense vibrations. This had them wondering exactly what was going on. However, in the next instant, everyone's jaws dropped to the ground. A spiky wall that looked like it was made of icy diamonds was growing out of the ground. It surrounded the entire upper district, putting Arabia City in a kind of cage. It looked so thick and sturdy as it grew out ground and reached into the sky. In a couple of seconds, it reached a height of 5,000 feet and began to curve. The top of all sides curved in as they kept growing out till the upper district of Arabia City was completely covered up. Now it truly looked as though the city had been placed in a cage. The icicle-like walls were so deeply bonded and thick that only a few rays of sunlight was let through the covering. All the Jinxidus members that were close to arriving at the edge of the upper district were dumbfounded as they found themselves trapped in place. P. Andy and Ov1. Co-em guys. Make sure you take care of the ones that already got out and every single one of them in the slums. The instant Gustav voiced this command through the comms, the others understood that the covering was his doing. Dash understood. They all answered as they got to work. They were trying to leave, but finding it difficult to cause any form of damage to the wall cage that had just appeared all over the city. Let's try doing it together. One of the Jinxidus members who was also operating a mech voiced out. Dash, the others without good weapons should move to the side. Dash, there is barely any space here. Where are we supposed to move to? They argued back and forth until a loud voice interrupted. Let me help. They all turned around when they heard this. Who is that? Since they didn't recognize the voice, neither did they sense or hear the approach. One of them asked, Your friendly neighborhood Spiderma. Mayo wouldn't get it, the voice responded. Step, step, step. A person covered in a milky glow appeared from within some of the roots, which disintegrated upon making contact with his body. Atomic armor has been deactivated. Their eyes widened as they saw the original look of this person. Dash Goo. Gustav Crimson? Dash, what is he doing here? Dash, how is he unaffected? The Jinxidus members voiced out one after the other with expressions of wariness. Do not concern yourselves with these questions. After all, Gustav smirked as he spoke. There is no point in answering the dead, Gustav added before speeding forward. Swoosh, not a single one of them was able to react in time before Gustav arrived before the first mech. Atomic disintegration has been activated. Palm strike has been activated. Gustav activated 2 skills at once and thrusted his right palm forward. A milky glow coated his entire arm as his palm thrust forward with intensity. Bang! His palm tore through the chest of the mech upon collision and kept thrusting forward till it penetrated the chest of the operator. The eyes of the Jinxidus members widened even more as they witnessed an organ flying out of the back of the operator. Plop! The Jinxidus member heart slammed into the wall ahead and got poked by one of the Iroh silk. Everything had happened so fast, the members equipped with weapons and mech were unable to react in time. Jackson! A female Jinxidus member yelled out with an horrified look. Kill him! The Jinxidus members yelled out as they activated their weapon systems and sent forth all sorts of attacks in Gustav's direction. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Gustav muttered as his eyes glowed a menacing crimson color. Swayib Gustav spotted all the projectiles headed for him and swerved speedily across the place. He dodged them with ease and leapt upwards. Boom, boom, explosive energy blasts were shot at him in mid-air, and he proceeded to punch through them. Fuhum! A wave of wind blasted from the force of Gustav's punch spread across the place, clearing the air instantly. Bang! Gustav landed on another mech and instantly ripped it in half. The operator fell out and Gustav stomped on his head, blasted it to pieces and giving the ground a new painting. Chapter 11:27 The operator fell out and Gustav stomped on his head, blasting it to pieces and giving the ground a new painting. The Janxidus members were even more horrified after witnessing Gustav's brutality. They had heard stories of how cold and callous he was to his enemies. Witnessing his actions now, they had no more doubts. Contact the higher-ups, or we're all gonna die here. One of the Janxidus members yelled out while engaging Gustav. Gustav conjured 2 atomic blades in his hands and swung them sideways. Slash, slash. 2 milky-colored arcs cut across the air with intensity and cleaved 2 mechs in half. Both operators were instantly sent to the afterlife after getting dissected. Gustav dashed across the place and leapt upwards to a mech that was up to 30 feet tall before burrowing his fist into the chest area of the mech. The mech was immensely sturdy, and he already calculated this beforehand, so he made use of the double effect ability. The last 5 mechs suddenly took up an unknown battle formation the instant Gustav performed that action. Here. A ball of energy had been charging up within the chest area of the mech, which they finally revealed. Fire! One of them yelled out as they each released this ball of energy, which was reddish in color. Gustav wanted to pull his arm out of the hole he created within the 30 feet tall mech in a bid to evade all 5, but soon realized he was trapped. Thish. The 3 mech operators within ejected and thrusters appeared around them, which boosted their speed as they headed further away. Panda, NOV. E1 The mech operators leapt backwards upon releasing this attack as well. Thria. Strings of light suddenly shot forth from these energy balls at light speed and stuck to Gustav's body. He was unable to react on time due to how quickly they arrived before him. In the next instant, energy ripples were released from these energy balls, and then, boom, 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 boom. Blasts rang out, setting forth waves of destruction in every direction. The houses covered up by the roots in the vicinity were all blasted to kingdom come as the ripple of waves destroyed everything in its path. The force was enough to create a massive crater in the ground due to the destructiveness. The walls set up ahead even quaked a bit as shockwaves were sent flying across the place. The houses in this area, with people who were still alive initially, had all been blasted to nothingness as well. A massive cloud of dust spread across the upper district as a quarter of it had been destroyed from this blast. The other Janxidus members had activated protective devices to shield them from the waves of this gargantuan attack, so they were okay. As the dust cleared, a 20,000 feet wide crater was left in place with lots of the roots in the vicinity blasted away. It was more than 1,000 feet deep and cracks were at every corner. That should have gotten him. Some of them moved towards the ledge as they voiced out. Some of them were directly in the crater since they didn't get far enough, but they were unscathed due to the energy field they used since all of them knew of the attack beforehand. The mech operators moved forward as well to check the crater. I don't see him. He must have been reduced to ashes. The walls are still standing though. What the hell? Even with such a blast, they didn't crumble? The Janxidus members discussed amongst themselves with looks of relief and disbelief at the same time. We need to find a way. In the midst of discussing, a small rumble drew their attention, followed by the movement of a large piece of earth in the middle of the crater. What is happening? They questioned amongst each other. Bang! A piece of earth moved to the side and a person was revealed underneath. Gasp! It can't be. He is still alive? Their eyes widened and their jaws nearly dropped to the ground as they spotted Gustav in the middle of this gigantic crater. Clunk, 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 clunk. Pieces of icicle-like crystals fell from his body as he slowly stood to his feet with a dark face. The Janxidus members noticed that the icicle-like crystals bore a resemblance to the walls that had been erected around the upper district. Could he be the one responsible for this cage? They were coming to this awe-striking realization at the moment. Blood trickled down Gustav's face, and the upper part of his MBO uniform had been completely obliterated, displaying his magnificent-looking body. He had a few more bloodied area on his upper body, but he didn't seem to be in pain. That should have wiped out no less than 500 houses. They truly don't care about the deaths of others as long as they achieve their goal, Gustav thought as he looked upwards. We're nearly out of core energy, Run. One of the Jinxidus members operating a mech yelled out, "Kaya, run!" The Jinxidus members turned around to flee. "Now I feel more affirmed with leaving none of you alive," Gustav muttered as wings sprouted out of his back. Foop, his figure blurred, and he instantly arrived at the top of the crater. The Jinxidus member he arrived before still had his mouth open in fear and shock. What he noticed next was his sight elevating, while the rest of his body was still on the ground. "If you want to leave, leave your life behind," Gustav voiced out while holding onto the decapitated head of the Jinxidus member. He had yanked the head of the Jinxidus member off his body so quickly that blood only started flowing out when he was already more than 100 feet away from the decapitated body. "Kaya, please visit Panda, N0VE1. Co. M." The members kept screaming out in terror as Gustav sped across the air. Gustav decapitated another Jinxidus member and held both heads in his hands. He suddenly arched his arm backwards with both heads in his grasp in a throwing format. Fwyi. The heads caught fire and began blazing intensely like two fiery balls. He swung forward with in the next instant, throwing both heads out. Bang, bang, bang. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gustav counted as the flaming heads slammed into one Jinxidus member after the other. Bang, 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 bang. Upon collision, the heads would burrow into the body of a member and come out the other side, leaving a head-size hole in their body. Both heads brought down more than 12 Jinxidus members before losing momentum. "Not bad," Gustav smirked as he stared at the chaos from above. The rest that were still alive were frantically fleeing for their lives while screaming with terrified expressions. They had been completely shaken by everything they had just witnessed and could only hope they would get out of this alive. Fuhum, Gustav sped across the air once more and arrived before a Jinxidus member. Swayi, with a swing of his palm, the Jinxidus member instantly lost an arm. "Please spare me. Please." She kept pleading while dragging herself on the ground while blood oozed out of her empty shoulder. How hypocritical. You lots just killed tens of thousands, and you're pleading to be spared? Gustav clicked his tongue as he squatted in front of her. "Please. It's the higher-ups. We can't disobey them." She kept pleading while trying to drag herself further away. "Grab." Gustav grabbed one of her leg and pulled her back to his position. "To think you can even fool me is yet another reason to punish you," Gustav stated before swinging his palm forward. Splurt, blood splattered across the place as the Jinxidus member lost her left leg. "Kyrgek." Her face turned completely pale as she screamed in pain with snot flowing out of her nose. "Oh, you think I don't know you? Haha, weren't you the one who led an operation that caused the death of around 5,000 mixed bloods?" Gustav voiced slowly. Her face shone a look of confusion and disbelief. "You're probably wondering how I know that. It's a secret," Gustav stated before ripping another limb. Swoosh, Gustav left the poor Jinxidus member to die in her pool of blood as he chased down the rest. He left a trail of blood and incomplete body parts in his wake. Hunting down the Jinxidus members in this cage he had created seemed like a sport to him. He didn't spare anyone he spotted and slaughtered wantonly. He would give chase, leave them frightened before slaughtering a whole bunch of them. The cage was becoming too small for them despite how large it was. There was nowhere they could escape to that the Grim Reaper in form of Gustav wouldn't find them. All the MBO officers who were unable to escape from the upper district before the roots covered everywhere were already long dead. Gustav decided to pay them a tribute by sending the souls of these Jinxidus members to join them in the afterlife. About an hour later, Gustav landed in the middle of the upper district with a body soaked in blood. Yash. 12,632 Jinxidus members erased from the face of the earth, Gustav stated since he had kept count since the beginning. Only one left. A sinister smile appeared on his face as he turned towards the left. Ek. A small masculine voice rang out from the side, and the sounds of footsteps were heard next. Fwoosh, Gustav body blurred once more, and he arrived a couple of feet away. Bump. Something, or rather someone bumped into him, but the person was invisible. The person quickly turned around to run while still invisible. Grab. Gustav grabbed hold of the person's neck from behind and lifted them up. Don't delude yourself. I saw you from the start. I just chose to leave you for last, Gustav voiced while tightening his grip on the neck of the invisible Jinxidus member. 3. A glitch-like projection appeared around where Gustav was gripping, and the person turned visible. It was a man with buzz cut and a green mechanical-looking armor surrounding his body. Gruckruckle. The Jinxidus member body thrashed in mid-air as he struggled to breath. Not to worry, if I wanted to kill you, I would have done that already, Gustav voiced out as he slowly loosened his grip. I will give you the chance to live, but if you mess it up, I promise to kill you in the most painstakingly and gruesome way you couldn't possibly imagine, Gustav added while slowly letting go of the Jinxidus member. The member fell to the ground and coughed a couple of times before looking up with an expression of hope. I know the leaders of the Jinxidus are here, but for some reason they have managed to evade this whole thing, unlike the rest of you that were actually affected. They are supposed to be affected as well, but I believe they may have some countermeasures. Gustav paused as he got to this point. Let me not bore you with my lengthy assumptions. Tell me where the leaders are, Gustav demanded. Dash, they have all been slaughtered. Dash, how could this have happened? Dash, Gustav crimson again. How does he always manage this? Dash, no one can get into the city or leave. Are we even safe here? Leaders, I need you all to stop panicking. Within the dimly lit space, the main leader voiced out. We might not be able to leave, but we are indeed safe here. Their vices will never be able to reach us because they have no idea where exactly we are. Calm down. The moment they deactivated the spatial disruptor, we will be able to leave here through the emergency exit, the main leader stated with a calming tone. Do not purchase privilege tiers till 10th of February. All chapter errors will be rectified before then. Chapter 1128 Calm down. The moment they deactivated the spatial disruptor, we will be able to leave here through the emergency exit, the main leader stated with a calming tone. An holographic display of the cage surrounding Arabia City Upper District was playing out before them. By the side it showed distorted footage of the bodies scattered across the city. They had partially witnessed Gustav's slaughter spree, which had incited the panic they felt. Seeing how brutal he had acted, they didn't want to get caught by any means. Within an unknown medieval city, icy stones fell from the skies above as the whole city seemed to be severely lowered in temperature. The icy stones, which were of different sizes, blasted to pieces when they reached a certain height due to a dome covering the entire medieval city. In the outskirts of this city, some of these falling ice stones were as large as buildings, and they fell unhindered to the ground. A normal person wouldn't last outside the city, since they would be crushed to pieces by the falling ice stones. Hailstorms were a usual sight in this unknown location, and the climate was usually on the extreme winter side. A 5'10" teenage boy with curly black hair strolled through the medieval city streets with a slightly bewildered expression. He was clad in silky and ragged-looking brown attire. A lot of the houses around here were made with ice stones, and the temperature was really at a freezing point, yet the people of the city didn't seem bothered by it. It looked like they strived in coldness. The teenage boy with curly black hair stared at a particular part of this city which had a floating cone-shaped building in the heart of the city. He was closing in on that area already, and the people around greeted him with respectful expressions upon sighting him. After a few more minutes, he finally arrived in the vicinity of the floating cone-like structure. A 7-foot-tall gallant figure in silver and golden armor suddenly appeared before him. This figure sported a long blue hair and was equipped with a massive 6-foot-long sword. She stood right in front of Indrik, blocking his path. By her side were two guards with straight-looking expressions, both equipped with weapons. Tarmac, are you going against your word now? Indrik voiced out while raising his head slightly to meet her gaze. Eric, you have accomplished the final task required, so I can no longer deny you access, Tarmac responded. It's Indri, never mind. Indrik gave up trying to correct her. There is one thing you need to know before you get into the Library of Shadows. The Tarmac resumed speaking. What is that? Indrik questioned. Do not under any circumstance go for the book with a triple golden starred cover. It is forbidden, and you will immediately be pulled out of the Library of Shadows, the Tarmac revealed. Your life will be spared if you did not see the contents after getting pulled out of the library, but if you so much as manage to take a glimpse of the contents, no matter how little, you shall be sentenced to death," she added. Indrik gulped down a throat full of saliva after hearing this. "Understood," he replied. She stared at Indrik briefly with a suspicious look before finally moving aside. "Stand underneath," she instructed while gesturing at the space underneath the floating cone structure. Indrik did as instructed, moving to the designated spot. The tarmac collected a dagger from one of the guards beside her and pulled off her left glove. An unknown tattoo-like marking could be seen in the middle of her palm. She then proceeded to stab the middle of the palm where the tattoo was inscribed. Sea and blood oozed out, and the tattoo changed from white to red before glowing up brightly. Indrik, who was standing under the floating cone structure, felt a pull from above and raised his head. Flying in the next instant, he suddenly disappeared. He stared at the city from above as he gave a set of instructions. "I've gotten the humans who live in the houses in that area out of there. You can go ahead," Gustav voiced through the comms. After a few more seconds, a rumble reverberated across the upper district. In a part of the upper district, the ground suddenly began to cave in. KRRRYYYCHHH, cracks spread across a wide area as the ground collapsed in and continued to spread for a radius of 1,000 feet. All of the building structures in that area, as well as the roots, all caved in as well. They crumbled as they fell into the large hole. About a minute later, what was left in that area was a hole more than 1,500 feet deep. Gustav stared at it from above with a satisfied expression before swooping downwards. Fua bang! He landed at the bottom of the hole in a few moments, which was filled with all sorts of rubble. It was completely dark at the bottom, but Gustav was unaffected by such a situation. He tapped his wrist area, and a holographic display showing a couple of things appeared. Zing! In the next instant, a palm-sized device appeared in his grasp. A smirk appeared on Gustav's face as he slowly took a squatting position with this device in his grasp. "A minute earlier, what is going on? Is this what I think it is? The ground just sank in, and now the area we're situated is now exposed. There is no need for panic, leaders. We still exist in another dimensional frequency. We are safe here," the main leader kept assuring the other leaders as they watched footage of happenings above surface level. The space was still dimly lit, but there was tension in the air despite the unclear faces of the Jinxidus leaders. He just landed at the bottom of the hole. What is? He is definitely up something." Tension rose as they stared at Gustav's actions. If we're truly safe here, then what is he doing with that?" One of the leaders questioned as they spotted a device in Gustav's grasp. Isn't that? That is the same charge used to affect the other dimensional frequencies earlier. We are doomed." The leaders jumped to their feet as they noticed Gustav placing the device on the ground and activating it. "Relax, leaders, relax." The main leader also stood to his feet as he voiced out. "We still have contingency plans," he voiced out while slowly stepping backwards. Upon arriving at the wall, he tapped a part of its surface. A small space shitted open in the wall, and he stepped in with his back. I still have contingency plans." A sinister smile appeared on the main leader's face. He voiced out. Leader, you." Although their faces couldn't be seen properly, there was no doubt that the other leaders had expressions of betrayal on their faces at the moment. Follow me on TikTok, Timvik_. I posted a spoiler video, and I will be making a petition related to one of the spoilers in the next chapter. Chapter 11:29 Boom. At this same instant, a charge was set off on the surface. Gustav had activated the device. "Sorry, my fellow leaders, but this place only allows one person. I have enough oxygen and food here to last me for days till the effect of the charge wears off. Then I can escape," the leader voiced out as he noticed the other leaders began to choke. Core. HLQLDU? The rest of the leaders coughed intensely as they voiced out with tones of regret. "I shall rebuild the Jinxidus. Since we still have lots of bases scattered across the world, bouncing back from this incident won't be an issue," the main leader voiced out from the secluded space. Too bad the rest of you won't be here to witness it. He clicked his tongue with a tone of disappointment. If you four are truly loyal to the Jinxidus, you should kill yourselves or stay here till you die instead of getting caught by Gustav Crimson, the main leader added. Above the surface, Gustav stood in place waiting after the charge had been set off. Any minute now, Gustav muttered with a smile as he waited. They won't be able to get away with any spatial help since the disruptor is active, the system announced. So they have no choice but to exit the other frequency from the vicinity. Looks like I have nothing to worry about, Gustav replied with a look of understanding. After a couple of minutes, a circular beam of light appeared on the ground several feet away. Zing, two figures clad in whitish cloak appeared within the circular beam an instant later. Zing, before Gustav could check them out, another circular beam appeared a couple of feet behind. The moment Gustav turned around to check out the second beam, the figures that had just appeared stormed off. Phew, both of them had instantly tapped on the chest area of the cloak, which in turn caused their entire figure to be covered in a suit. This was activated the instant they arrived on the surface. The suit gave them increased movement speed and agility, which they were currently using to try to get away. Fly with a single leap, both figures had crossed up to 500 feet and they headed in separate directions. Just as Gustav was about to go after them, the ones that had just arrived as well performed the same action. Fly, all four of them had fled in separate directions while clad in the suit that enhanced their physical capabilities. They all headed north, south, east, and west respectively, arriving at the top of the hole in only a few moments. They must have planned this before leaving the other dimensional frequency. Thinking it would work against me, Gustav muttered as he made a 360 degrees turn to check out the runners. Blink. Gustav's eyes suddenly turned dark pink with a mixture of gold. Cosmic superiority. Parallel domain, Gustav whispered. Paiyu, an outburst of golden and pink energy was sent forth from his figure. The runners instantly felt a wave of unprecedented and unfathomable energy sweep across the vicinity. Gustav had controlled the wave of his parallel domain, limiting it to only a small range. Had he let it run wild, the entire city as well as the neighboring ones would be affected. This was something he didn't want since his friends were also within the city. This power was a combination of Yarki and another ability he unlocked after becoming a parallel being. All figures that were escaping initially paused as they figured out they had lost control of their body functions. Their figures were lifted into the air, and they found their bodies floating back to the same place they fled from. No matter how much they tried, they couldn't even move a finger, much less let out a scream. They were completely incapacitated by this strange and unknown Goldie power. Only their thoughts were their own, but their bodies at this point didn't even belong to them anymore. Is this the power of Gustav Crimson? Just as suspected, he is indeed a dangerous man. The leader's thoughts ran wild as they arrived before Gustav. Did you lots think you could actually escape from me like that? A smirk appeared on Gustav's face as he voiced out. Think again, Gustav said while moving towards the first one. Fish, he deactivated his suit, and the face that appeared before him was a blue-colored one with horn on the forehead. Gustav moved to the next one and deactivated the suit as well. This time it was a female face. She looked pretty human but had a pointy ear with unknown markings behind them. The last two Gustav deactivated had similar looks, making Gustav believe they were relatives. Two of them had the same type of horn on their faces. All Slarkovs. I thought as much, Gustav said internally after uncovering their identities. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. There was not a single human amongst these Jinxidus leaders. Now that I have you all in the palm of my hand, tell me why I shouldn't slaughter you one after the other, Gustav stated. They were silent for a bit before Gustav realized something. Oh, he snapped his fingers after exclaiming. You can speak now, he said while conjuring a chair out of Iro silk. He proceeded to sit with his legs crossed as the floating figures in front of him drew a little closer. You can't kill us, Gustav Crimson. We are valuable to the MBO. Oh, is that so? A snack appeared in Gustav's hand, and he began chewing away as he listened to them speak. You are a slave to the MBO. You must keep we the leaders alive for questioning. One of them voiced out once more. Am I now? Gustav gobbled down another mouthful of snack before nonchalantly staring at the fourth leader who had just spoken. Why I bang. A popping sound rang out in the next instant, causing the leader's eyes to widen in shock and fright. I guess you can't answer my question. After all, you're missing a head, Gustav muttered as he stared at the fourth floating leader who now had a headless corpse. Kairar. No. The three leaders yelled out as they watched blood squirt out of the fourth leader's headless corpse like a fountain. Gustav watched the blood flow with an unbothered expression before snapping his fingers. Pa. The headless corpse fell to the ground and was soon covered in a pool of its own blood. Chomped, Gustav resumed gnawing on the snack bar in his hand while watching the frightened reactions of the other leaders. I wonder if anyone else thinks I'm a slave of the MBO, Gustav voiced out while swallowing another mouthful of snack. Despite the stench of blood in the vicinity, he was not bothered in the slightest. Please spare us, the leaders began pleading for their lives. Nah. One or maybe all of you will still die by my hands, Gustav replied without an iota of mercy in the tone of his voice. Please we will tell you everything you want to know. Please spare me. I will for sure cooperate. Well, it depends on if you give me enough valuable information. Then I can let the rest of you live. If not, he'll just kill all three of you and tell the MBO there was no way to save you lots. After saying this, Gustav drank a bottle full of water. There is still one more. Gustav's face beamed with a look of interest upon hearing the female leader say this. Tell me more. The bottle in Gustav's grasp disintegrated into light particles as he stared at the Slarkov woman with interest. Contact them again. In the control room on the outskirts of Arabia City, Commander Darmark voiced out. Commanders? Officer Eldris, can you give us a status update? Commander Darmark questioned. All Janxidus members outside the upper district have been successfully rounded up. Total number is 2,734, Eldris responded from the other side. Good job. Any word from Officer Crimson? None yet. We have tried contacting him over and over, but to no avail. Our satellites are running blind after the cover-up, so we have no idea what is going on, Commander Shuri voiced out this time. Not to worry, commanders. Officer Crimson will update us himself after he has achieved his objective, Eldris replied. Such insubordination. He chose to disallow any communication with the higher-ups to pursue his own agenda. Officer Crimson must be. Officer Colt began voicing out when Eldris interrupted. Officer Crimson did that to avoid unnecessary distraction, which would lead to further mishap of the mission. He will reach out to us once the objective is complete, Eldris stated. This is no. Commander Colt, calm down. Commander Darmark shut him down before he could say anything this time. On the bright side, the Janxidus members are trapped within the barricade of those spiky walls, Commander Shuri added. If you want Miss Amy to get impregnated by Gustav, drop a yay in the comments section below. If not, drop a nay. Chapter 1130. We have asked for reinforcements, so we will have more officers surrounding the walls soon to make sure no Janxidus member manages to escape. Commander Darmark gave this final head-up before disconnecting. Within the upper district, a wave of darkness could be seen surrounding a particular vicinity. This wave of darkness was like a never-dying flame of pitch darkness that prevented anything or anyone from coming close. All the roots in this area had completely given this wave of pitch darkness quite the distance despite sensing that there was a mixed blood within. They couldn't go near it. There was nothing but empty space in this area, besides the darkness which was in a stationary state. Where am I? What is this? A presence within the domain of darkness kept questioning. It was like this presence both existed and didn't exist at the same time. Your body went into survival mode. Causing this, a voice answered the presence. Dark, is that you? Of course, you pig. I mean, my king. What do you mean by king? Tell me what exactly this is and how I get out of it. You are the... I can't say yet, but you are already transitioning, so you will figure it out soon enough. What do you even mean by that? Lowlife. I mean king. You are the one who did this, so only you can get out of it. I don't even know what this is. How will I even figure out what to do? You will have to cost nobody. Hold on. Only he might be able to help. He? He who? Fuhum. A loud whooshing sound rang out, and what was heard next was a familiar voice calling out a name. Falco, you really have a lot of explaining to do. He heard the familiar voice once more. Outside the area of darkness, Gustav stood in place. He happened to be inspecting the vicinity. Well, at least, whatever this is protected you, Gustav muttered as he looked around. His eyes were glowing a myriad of colors which depicted that god eyes were activated. All of the roots in the vicinity did not dare close in on this area, and the darkness had eroded the place it dwelled upon. Gustav stretched one hand forward and could already feel the erosion and negativity the darkness embodied. That's powerful. Under normal circumstances, I won't be able to come near this, Gustav said as he lowered his arm. The darkness is super concentrated. It is a domain of its own. If anyone goes in, they are never coming back. The system chimed in. From what I can see, it has different effects, none good. Gustav deactivated God Eyes at this point. Atomic disintegration alone won't do the job. Since it also has effects that go beyond physicality, after determining a bunch of things, Gustav finally activated an ability. Ultimate Combination has been activated. Gustav's body morphed as he increased in size and muscular structure. His skin turned whitish as a single ram horn grew out of his forehead. He reached a height of 9 feet as a halo appeared around his head as well as a tail and some crimson markings. Zguiuish, a wave of energy blew across the vicinity, causing the city to begin rumbling once more as Gustav activated this ability. Ultimate Combination had become extremely powerful since Gustav had also increased in strength. This should do it, Gustav thought. Not only could he feel the immense increase in strength, Ultimate Combination also embodied a lot of abilities without issues. The glow surrounding him increased as he began taking steps forward. The darkness in his path increased in size and tried to consume his figure, but in this state, Gustav was just too powerful for it to truly have effect on him. Besides the darkness trying to erode him from the inside out, he could also sense negativity as thoughts began to appear in his mind. However, Gustav was able to bear it and pushed forward into the darkness, emitting light from his figure. Gustav couldn't imagine how terrible it would have been had he tried infiltrating the darkness without activating Ultimate Combination. A couple of seconds later, he arrived before an unconscious body floating a couple of feet above the ground. Falco, Gustav muttered as he stared at the tattoos that had covered his entire body. Besides that, a crown made of total darkness was floating just a few inches away from Falco's head. This dark crown was only half constructed and seemed to still be forming. This left Gustav with a slightly confused expression as he inspected Falco and the half-constructed dark crown for a bit. "Wake up, we gotta go," Gustav voiced out while moving closer to Falco's floating body. There was no response. Falco remained unconscious. He won't wake till you get him out of the darkness. If he remains here, he will transition completely. A voice rang out from Falco figure, yet he remained unconscious. Dark Falco? Is that you? Gustav questioned. What does it matter, loser? TCH. The voice responded. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. Transition completely? What do you mean by that? Gustav questioned, ignoring Dark Falco's insult. He will become the sovereign of darkness untimely and his adventure with you lowlives will come to an end. Sovereign of darkness? What is that? Gustav questioned once more. If I were to start explaining everything to you, we will be here forever and he will transition you fool. Get him out. Dark Falco yelled back with a tone of anguish. All right, Gustav went on to grab Falco's body. TSSSHHH. Dark matter instantly spread from Falco to Gustav's hand upon making contact. What the? Gustav let go upon feeling intense pain. The darkness that had covered his palm and his entire wrist upon the initial contact slowly rescinded. I may have forgotten to mention that getting him out of here won't be easy, Dark Falco stated. He'll be damned. Gustav couldn't believe that even with Ultimate Combination activated, Falco power still affected him this much. Gustav braced himself this time as he reached out to grab Falco once more. TSSSHHHHH, the dark matter began spreading again. Gustav quickly turned around and charged forward. Swoosh, the dark matter spread faster as he sped out of the range of the darkness. Fortunately, it only took about 2 seconds for Gustav to get out of the range with Falco. However, these 2 seconds were enough for him to be nearly consumed by darkness completely. Gustav breathed in and out heavily as dark thoughts plagued his mind and his innards were being eroded. You will not succeed. You are still trash. The earth will be destroyed along with everyone you love. You will fail Miss Amy and everyone else. Fool. Fool. Gustav breathed in and out heavily as the thoughts began to subside and the darkness that covered nearly his entire body began to rescind. Damage had been done to his internal organs, but his regeneration was working to restore that from the moment he got out of the vicinity of darkness. You definitely have a lot to explain, Gustav voiced out as he deactivated Ultimate Combination. SSSHHHHSHSHH, gas was released from his body as he reverted to his original look. Falco's tattoo were rescinding as well, and the crown of darkness began fading away. Gustav could tell that he would soon regain consciousness. Dark Falco? Gustav tried calling out to Dark Falco multiple times, but there was no answer. He wanted to question him on what Dark Falco mentioned earlier, but it looked like Dark Falco was ignoring him. Officer Crimson, you finally contacted us, Commander Darmark voiced through the comms. Commanders, the operation has come to a finish. Prepare to evacuate the civilian survivors, Gustav voiced from the other side. The Jinxidus members have been rounded up? The commanders all voiced out at the same time with expressions of disbelief. Huh? No, Gustav replied. Then what do you mean by the operation has ended? Commander Colt yelled out. Everyone is dead. What? Well, not everyone, but I'm sure you already know that these roots were after mixed bloods, right? The commanders. So yeah, all mixed bloods are dead now, including MBO officers that were trapped here and civilians. The human civilians are still alive though, Gustav reported. How could this be? Commander Shuri voiced with a devastated tone. Thousands of MBO officers had lost their lives due to Psi Endeavor. What about the Jinxidus members? Officer Colt questioned. 12,632 Jinxidus members. I slaughtered. Gustav revelation caused all commanders to open their mouths wide with crazy expressions. On the bright side, I caught 3 of their leaders and left 1 member alive. You can question those. P Indian 0v1, C, OM, Officer Crimson. I'm lowering the walls now. The communication was disconnected after this. The commander's looks of shock had not faded even after a couple of seconds had passed by. Send word to the reinforcements surrounding the upper district. Tell them to bring back the captured member and leaders and also escort Officer Crimson back to this base. Y'all really need to touch grass FR anyways. The nay are higher than the yay. I'm sure you all know what this means. Some MBO officers who recognized their peers or found someone they knew amongst the dead officers were in a state of mourning. Well, the MBO officers didn't care about slaughtering the innocents who may have consumed the bloodline-dampening seeds, so I guess they met a fitting end themselves, Gustav said out loud as he watched them work from a rooftop. You would have killed them as well if not for the fact that you remained unaffected. Falco scrunched his nose as he voiced out from the side. True. Which is why I wouldn't be mad if I had met my demise here, Gustav responded. You couldn't even try to lie. Falco clicked his tongue at Gustav's bluntness. I would have still tried to save EES people though, but that is just because of EE so it doesn't really count, Gustav shrugged. Would it? Falco was about responding when they heard a loud call from below. Officer Crimson. They both looked down and could spot a bunch of MBO officers walking towards the building they were standing on. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. Officer Crimson, we were asked to escort you back to the control room. One of the officers voiced out. Those are the people you should escort back, Gustav stated while pointing at the 4 who were Jinxidus leaders and a member below. The commanders asked for you to be brought back along with them, the officer replied. And if I refuse? Gustav questioned while squinting his eye with a menacing look. Would have no choice but to use force, the officer replied as they surrounded the building. Huh, why are these guys trying to take you back by force? Falco inquired with a look of confoundment. Probably 'cause I killed more than 10,000 Jinxidus members instead of capturing them, Gustav replied with a casual tone. Oh, all right. Falco nodded as he folded his arms. His eyebrows suddenly twitched as he came to a realization. You killed over 10,000 of them? He voiced with a tone of terror. Why are you acting so surprised? Gustav said while raising an eyebrow. 'Cause you killed over 10,000, you psycho. Falco responded with a bizarre look. I've killed hundreds of thousands before. This is nothing in comparison, Gustav shrugged. You bloody murderer. It wasn't on purpose, though. This one was. Yeah, 'cause they deserve to die. The MBO officer's sights kept traveling from Gustav to Falco, and then from Falco to Gustav as the two argued. Officer Crimson. One of the officers called out again. What? Falco and Gustav voiced at the same time. You are coming with us? The officer responded. Not interested, Gustav replied before taking a seat on the rooftop. It is insubordination to disobey the command of a superior, especially when they are the commanders of the operation, the officer stated. I read the MBO guidelines in camp, so you don't need to inform me. However, I cannot come with you lots because my work here is not complete. Gustav responded with a cryptic tone. We are sorry, but we will have to use force now since you have refused to come with us willingly. The officer apologized while gesturing at the others. You are welcome to try. Gustav's eyes showed a disinterested expression as he remained in place. Fuoom, fuoom, fuoo. The officers activated their bloodline abilities in preparation to attack. Hold on, Falco voiced out, causing them to stop. Why don't you want to go with them? Falco inquired while squatting beside Gustav. The main leader. He's still in hiding, Gustav revealed. Falco's eyes widened slightly as he heard that. Do you mean the main Jinxidus leader? Yes, he might show himself once the entire place has returned to tranquility. Can't risk missing him. If he escaped, everything would have been for nothing because the Jinxidus will definitely recover, Gustav explained. Falco's face lit up with a look of contemplation as he heard this. How about this? Go with them first. I will keep an eye out and inform you if I notice anything out of place, Falco suggested. Keep an eye out on the entire upper district and not just the massive hole over there, Gustav instructed while jumping off the building. Sure, Falco replied with a nod. Let's go, Gustav said to the fellow officers upon landing on the ground. Two of them moved towards his sides and were about to hold on to his arms when he spoke. Did they ask you to treat me like a criminal too? He questioned. One of them wanted to respond when Gustav interrupted. It will be in your best interest to stay away if you don't want to lose your hands, Gustav threatened. They arrived before a couple of hover cars lined up and Gustav got in along with them. Some of the officers joined the one he sat in while others followed the ones the Jinxidus members were kept. If you were that talented and managed to take down a terrorist organization almost single-handedly, I bet you would be way cockier, Commander Darmark voiced in response. I suggest you too try to make him an accomplice instead of antagonizing him, he added. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. Co. M-3 weeks later, in the far reaches of the intergalactic space, a planet thrice the size of Earth orbited around a massive sun. A lady in all-white flowing robes floated in mid-space, right in between the massive sun and the planet. The sun was more than 200 million kilometers away from the planet, but the heat it radiated was still intense, considering it was bigger than Earth's sun. A bright and ethereal glow oozed forth from the lady floating in space, causing the heat radiating from the sun to reduce before it reached the planet. The sun began to shift further from the planet, for what seemed to be the longest period of time before it stopped. The beautiful lady with the ash-colored hair slowly opened her eyes after a while. Now that it is outside the Milky Way, there won't be any more issues, she muttered as she stared at her planet with a caring gaze. I can finally create a place where supernatural abilities doesn't exist. No mixed bloods, no powers, nothing. She felt elated while saying this. She turned to stare at a particular direction in space where stars glittering in the distance could be seen. Some of these stars were actually planets but too distant, so they looked like stars. I should pay him a visit. It has been almost 6 months now, she worded before decided to head back into her planet's orbit first. All of a sudden, she felt a strange and unknown force awaken in this part of space. Sai is her. An enormously bizarre and pitch-black eye suddenly opened up on the far east side of her planet in space. It sent forth an outworldly energy upon its appearance that sent a strange vibe all across the Milky Way galaxy. THIRRRHHHZZEHHH. Miss Amy's face turned serious as she stared in the direction of this eye. She had never felt anything like this in her entire lifetime. It sent timbers down her spine, which was something that had never happened to her before, irrespective of how powerful an enemy was compared to her. This eye that had just opened up was 4 times more massive than the sun she created, and she was literally a speck of dust compared to it. Her planet was like an ant before, despite being 3 times larger than Earth. Miss Amy didn't know what this was, but it certainly didn't give her a good feeling, so she knew it was definitely the opposite of good. "What are you?" she muttered while the glow she emitted increased intensely. Miss Amy was definitely not someone that would back down in the face of adversity. Her outburst of energy caused ripples to travel across space as stars were shifted from their initial position. She drew the attention of the massive eye, which proceeded to shift its eyeball in her direction. Panned de N0, VE1's Heath, staring directly at her. Miss Amy could feel the sheer intensity of just its gaze. However, in the next instant, flickered, the eye closed up and phased back out of existence like it never appeared in the first place. Miss Amy's figure blurred as she charged forward and arrived at the exact location in space where the eye had appeared. Unfortunately, there was not a single trace of it. The strange energy it sent across the galaxy had also faded away. What was that? Miss Amy questioned softly. Anything that could make even her feel chills at her current level of strength was definitely something no mixed blood would be able to handle. This made her worried as she turned to stare in the direction of Earth once more. On Earth, GHBBLLBBBBBGH. A loud tremor traveled across Earth as it quaked for over a minute. The entire planet was affected by an unknown wave of energy that had suddenly hit the Earth barrier while traveling across space. Is that an eye? The entire planet was suddenly plunged into a state of chaos as some Earthlings spotted a large eye deep in the sky. Of course, not every part of Earth was able to spot this, but every part of Earth was affected by the quake. The eye disappeared just as quickly as it appeared, but some of the people that saw it took a picture and circulated it across the internet. This caused the Earth to go into a higher state of panic as the citizens quickly called on the world government to look into the situation. Gustav, who was just returning to Plankton City at the time, after training with his teammates for the past 3 weeks, paused in place after spotting the eye in the sky. Warning. Chapter 11, 33. Warning. 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 PN0VE1 com seconds earlier, the system began to go bunkers after the appearance of the massive eye. What is it? Gustav questioned repeatedly but didn't get an answer. Warning. 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 Activating self-destruct. What? Gustav's eyes widened as this notification appeared in his line of sight. What are you doing? Stop. Gustav yelled out while seated on a skyscraper. Self-destruct in 10, 9, hey. Stop it. System. 8, 7, 6. System. Have you gone crazy? 5, 4. Shit. Gustav cursed as his brain frantically worked on a way of handling the situation. Endangering myself isn't going to work since the system is practically activating self-destruct. Nothing like electromagnetic charges will be effective since the system is not of that kind of technology. Shit. I also can't reach into myself to do anything like a manual override since its physical existence is inexistent. More than 1 million different thoughts were popping up in his mind within a couple of milliseconds time frame. Activate dash. Activate lightning blitz. 3. The countdown continued uninterrupted. Gustav also tried multiple means besides activating a system ability, but every single one of them proved abortive since the existence of the system was one that had never been seen before. Till this day, Gustav still had very little knowledge about the system despite how long they had been bonded to one another. 2. Will I die when it self-destructs, or will only the system disappears? This was amongst the myriad of thoughts appearing in Gustav's mind. Just as the last second arrived, a plan that might work amongst the millions of thoughts he had conjured popped in his mind. It won. I hope this works. Gustav's face turned completely serious as he thought. However, just as he was about to activate what he had in mind, which was related with his cosmic superiority, the eye in the sky suddenly disappeared. Self-destruct deactivated, Gustav's face began to soften as he slowly returned to his calm state. System has returned to full operational capacity. Gustav stared at the sky, straight in the direction where the eye had appeared initially with a suspicious look. He had now confirmed that whatever appeared was responsible for the system going bonkers, just as he suspected earlier. Hey system, what the hell was that? Gustav questioned with a calm but wary tone. Don't ask questions, you don't want to know. The system voice sounded a bit metallic at first before returning to its usual tone. Don't play dumb. Just a while ago you were about to self-destruct. Tell me what that thing was and stop keeping secrets, damn it. For the first time, Gustav was truly getting pissed at the system as he voiced out, relax, if I were to self-destruct you'd be fine. I'd be gone but you'd be fine, the system clarified. That doesn't explain anything, Gustav stated. So long as you're alive there is nothing to worry about. Stop dodging the damn question. It's gone anyways so I'm good. Weren't you worried about me? So the eye truly had something to do with you going bonkers. You cannot keep hiding things from me. Tell me what it was, and I don't intend to hide things forever. It is just not the right time. Please visit Panda, N0V1. I've been hearing that for years. I'm sick of it. When is it ever gonna be the right time? Gustav wasn't backing down on this subject. Despite the Earth barrier protecting the Earth from the strange wave of energy that spread across the galaxy upon the appearance of the Earth, Gustav very much sensed the maliciousness and sinister feeling it gave off. Did you forget that early revelation would bring about cause and effect earlier than intended? The system reminded. Am I supposed to wait till the problem is right at my doorstep before finding a way to take care of it? Gustav questioned. That is why you are being prepared. You already know all of these tasks and quests are not for nothing. Everything that has happened so far is in accordance to guide you towards the right path to achieving success in your future endeavors, the system voiced lengthily. Am I supposed to battle whatever that eye is, or what? Gustav questioned while raising his eyebrows. No, that is nothing compared to what is coming, the system replied with a cryptic tone. Gustav, the only hint I can give you is, what had just happened today is one of the 5 premonitions, the system added. 5 premonitions? Does that mean 4 more similar events will take place in the future? Gustav questioned. No, expect differences. I can't say any more than that except, our time is running out, the system replied. Occurrences that can mess with your functionality. The maliciousness and outburst of aura it spread across space that caused the entire Earth to quake despite the barrier protection. Gustav could tell he would be dealing with no ordinary existences in the future. If the Earth didn't have a barrier, the entire planet would have sustained more damage just from its gaze alone. He couldn't deny that at the moment he was not only curious but also on edge. Gustav had accumulated quite the strength since he started this journey, but he knew he was still a bit far from reaching the pinnacle of power. No matter how much the authorities investigate, they will never be able to find out anything about this. Gustav could already tell they would be hitting dead end with their investigations. He would have to carry the cross alone for now, and find out more about the whole situation before he could include anyone. Indrik. His mind suddenly drifted to Indrik at the moment. He should know more about the situation. However, Gustav recalled Indrik had not returned and his fake was still walking around, pretending to be him. We leave for Florencia in a little over 1 week for Aesop. I'm sure he is aware that there's barely any time left, so he should be returning soon. Gustav thought out loud. You intend to question him about the eye? The system already knew where Gustav was going with this. Doesn't matter to you since you keep hiding things, Gustav responded before leaping off the skyscraper. Vorhomsch, his body traveled in an arc above Plankton City as he stared at the beautifully structured roads as WDLL as the teleportation rings and circles down there. In the past, the ground would be his means of transportation, but 3 years later, he's cutting across the sky in high speed. Gustav was currently heading back to the MBO tower since he had only left for a bit to clear his head after he arrived with the others from the ISOP training area today. The sudden occurrence was something no one had expected to happen. The massive screens in the city, which were initially displaying the ISOP candidates and information about the upcoming competition, were now broadcasting the current situation. The image of the eye, which had circulated across the media, was now being broadcasted by media outlets too. Gustav squinted his eyes as he leapt from place to place across the rooftops of the city skyscrapers while staring at the news display. He suddenly spotted something while his body was flying across the air. Hover has been activated. He activated Hover to pause his movement in mid-air as he stared down. In a particular street within Plankton City, some structures were to undergo rebuilding, which was causing to currently get demolished. Construction workers and a couple of worker droids could be seen moving about the area. However, the exact thing that had caught Gustav's attention was an item within one of the halfway demolished structures. He could see that there were other items placed outside the partly demolished structure so as to prevent them from getting destroyed, but THJ's particular item was abandoned inside. They didn't care if it was destroyed or not. Zethiasks. A loud mechanical sound rang out as a massive steel-like platform descended upon the halfway demolished structure in a bid to crush it completely. Phew! At this point, Gustav swooped down with intense speed, arriving right underneath the massive metallic platform. Bomb! A heavy sound of collision rang out, accompanied with sneaky sounds as the platform was stopped. It seemed it was struggling to descend further, which caused the construction workers to display looks of confusion. Gustav, who was right underneath the massive metallic structure which shadow had covered the entire vicinity, slowly pushed upwards with his left hand. The platform began to forcefully elevate while he stared at the tub in front of him, which bore multiple lines of cracks. A smile appeared on Gustav's face as he pushed the flat-surfaced metallic platform up completely before reaching to grab the tub. Dash, who the hell is that? Dash, did he just casually lift the crusher with a single hand? Dash, what the heck? That thing weighs almost 1,000,000 pounds. The construction workers in the vicinity had already sighted him from outside the range of the crusher and witnessed Gustav lifting the platform. Chapter 1134 Flume. Gustav got out of there with the tub in his grasp, which caused the construction workers to stare at him even more shockingly. Dash, that's Gustav Crimson. Now they recognized him since he was closer. However, before any of them could approach, Gustav leapt into the air and flew off. In an instant, he had disappeared into the far skies. The workers and everyone in the vicinity were still at loss as to what would cause such a scenario, but there was no one to answer all the questions in their mind. What the hell are you doing with the old bathroom tub? Falco questioned upon spotting Gustav carrying a large tub into the MBO tower. This tub here has been my buddy during difficult times. I consider it a relic of the past which serves as a worthy reminder of the old times to me, Gustav responded while heading towards the teleportation elevator with it. The MBO of fivers in the vicinity stared in his direction weirdly as they spotted the tub he was carrying. I don't get it, Falco stated in response while following Gustav. You don't have to, Gustav replied. Falco slightly rubbed his face before deciding not to give it much thought. The others are on the 628th floor in the cafeteria discussing what just happened, Falco disclosed. I'll meet you guys once I drop this off. Gustav felt he should have dropped this off at his house instead, but they just got here. He decided to keep it in a room here in the meantime till they left the MBO tower. Chatter. Within a restaurant-like vicinity, sounds of discussion could be heard all over the place. Some people had occupied tables where they sat and ate while chatting. Others were still trying to get something to eat. The attention of hundreds of people within the vicinity seemed to be drawn to a particular area where 3 large tables were joined together. A group of 17 sat around the 3 tables minding their business as they seemed to be chatting. However, everyone in the vicinity could not help but glance in their area multiple times, and even chatted about this group which seemed to be popular. That's them. The highest ranked amongst them is said to be Sheila. Sheila? But she looks like the youngest? She's a peak kilo ranked at such a young age. Abestos is just right after her. I hear Angie is fastest mixed blood of the young generation. Panda, NOV, E1 they all seem so powerful though. Looks like we really have a high chance of winning the ISOP, but 3 of them are missing. Where is Gustav? Mutters could also be heard across the place. A few moments later, a youngster with white hair walked into the cafeteria. He also drew everyone's attention as he moved towards the sitting position of the group of 17. Falco, where is he? Angie questioned upon his arrival. He went to drop something off. Don't bother asking what. But yeah, he should be here soon, Falco replied. Your hair has been getting quite dark lately. It might get difficult to tell the difference between you and Dark Falco if it turns completely black. Timmy voiced with a contemplative expression. This had been happening since after the operation to get rid of the Jinxidus. The operation had ended in success, and they even later caught the main leader of the Jinxidus. However, it was still a day everyone would never forget, especially for Falco. He was supposed to have lost his life as well, but he still hadn't figured out how he plunged himself into an unfathomable scenario. Dark Falco had been a lot silent since then, so he still hadn't gotten answers. Dark Falco is noisy and can't go a second without calling someone a low-life, so I'm pretty sure we would. He replied before Falco could. I guess you're right, Timmy mumbled. Where is Indrik? Sheila questioned. Didn't he say he was going to the bathroom? Matilda chimed in. It's been 2 hours already, Sheila voiced with a concerned tone. You sure are attentive when it comes to Indrik, Angie stated with a suspicious look. He is my husband-to-be, Sheila said before pouting. He is 13, you vile pedophile, Vin responded from the side. Age is just a number. Sheila placed her hands on her cheeks while fantasizing with a look of delight. She's a lost cause. Yep, certainly a nutcase. We should tell Gustav. Please visit Panda, N01. Co. Everyone nodded or commented while glaring at Sheila. Tell me what? Everyone turned their faces to the sides as they heard a familiar voice. Gustav, how did you get here? No one saw you come in? They voiced oit with tones of surprise. Because you guys weren't paying enough attention and I tested out an upgraded ability, Gustav replied to them as he took a seat. He noticed that the only person missing on this table out of their group was Indrik. Where did the fake go? He wondered internally. Brother-in-law, where's my husband? Sheila asked from the side. Don't call me that, Gustav stated. Brother-in-law, 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 brother-in-law. Sheila began poking Gustav's face from the other end of the table as she called out repeatedly. Gustav grabbed hold of her finger and glared at her with a cold look. Brother-in-law, she donned a wide smile as she called out once more, ignoring his death stare. Con. Vin knocked on Sheila's head from the side before voicing out, Behave yourself, T. You're no fun, Vin, she voiced before pulling her finger back and slopping down her chair. We'll be heading to the Oasis tomorrow for the 1-week meditation, Gustav announced. Yash, they finally approved? E said with a look of excitement. H&M, Gustav nodded. You all know it is closed to the rest of the world, not just because of how potent its waters are, but because its effects reduce upon usage. A day will come when the oasis will no longer exist if mixed bloods are allowed to entry, which is why it is a rare treasure to the entire Earth, Gustav added. So they only let us cause we are Earth's ISOP candidates? Rhea questioned. Obviously, Timmy responded. They only allow a single mixed blood to occupy the oasis once in every 10 years, Falco disclosed. Since I was allowed in recently, they shouldn't be letting anyone in for the next 10 years, but fortunately for us, we get to have the place to ourselves for a week before we head out of planet for ISOP, Gustav disclosed. Every single team member had looks of excitement on their faces after they heard Gustav announce this, even though some of them still didn't like him. They never knew there would be a time in their livelihood where they would be given access to the oasis. It was truly a dream come true. Within a massive medieval city with a dome surrounding it and ice chunks falling from the sky, a teenage boy with curly hair stood in the middle of what seemed to be a battlefield. It couldn't even be called a battlefield anymore, since it seemed like a one-sided slaughter had occurred here. Quish, a violent and invisible line, slashed through the air and decapitated a group of 20. Blood jetted out like a fountain, painting the cold iced ground with red. As heads rolled, bodies also piled. Destructiveness spread across the city and houses were collapsed as well. The teenage boy with black curly hair had a blood-soaked body with his eyes hung low as he stepped forward slowly. His face was expressionless, but his gaze bloody sharp. His knees weakened after taking a few steps, but not because of physical tiredness. Plop. He fell to his knees as he placed his hand on the pool of blood he had showered the city in. He slowly raised his hands with an expression of craziness as tears gathered in his eyes. Nuru! He yelled out with an intense feeling of emptiness and pain. GBBBHHHLLL. The ice on the grounds cracked as a wave of energy blasted forth from his figure and destroyed more of the structures in the vicinity. KRRYHHHHCHHKKK. Crash. Crashing sounds rang out as he kept screaming for close to 30 seconds. Ha 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 ha. He suddenly began laughing like a depraved lunatic as he picked himself up and resumed walking again. He was stepping on a path of corpses as he moved forward with a lifeless look. Suddenly, a corpse covered in blood far behind rose to its feet. I trusted you. Indrik. A weak feminine voice rang out. Indrik suddenly paused his footsteps as he slowly turned around to stare at the 7-feet-tall figure who was covered in a cracked armor. The muscular female figure had lots of holes in her outfit which was drenched in blood. The original color of the armor was unknown due to it being blood-soaked. You betrayed me, she struggled to voice out as she held her belly region. Chapter 1135 You betrayed me, she struggled to voice out as she held her belly region. Blood was still flowing from her figure and dropping onto the icy ground. Indrik's head hung low as he stared forward with an expression of shame. It was either you or him, Indrik stated. You, what do you stand to gain from this? She voiced out while slowly taking steps forward. The survival of someone important, to make sure he doesn't suffer again. This was the sacrifice, Indrik voiced with a low tone. Step, step, step. The tarmac lips quivered as she continuously and slowly stepped forward till she arrived before Indrik. Did these last 2 years mean nothing to you? Her figure towered over Indrik as she voiced while blood seeped out of her mouth. Were you only leading me on like a lamb ready to be slaughtered at the appropriate time? She questioned once more. Yes, Indrik's face turned dark as he replied. The tarmac's face froze up for a bit before a smile appeared on her face. That person must be really important to you then. She suddenly hugged Indrik after voicing out. I can't bring myself to hate you. Live long. Indrik. Her body slumped after saying this and she fell to the ground. You finally got my name right. Tears began streaming down Indrik's face as he stared at her giant lifeless body on the icy ground. Thria. Her corpse began to turn into light particles in the next instant, which flew towards Indrik. It formed a golden bracelet which strapped around Indrik's left wrist. Indrik stared at it with a myriad of emotions as he fell to his knees once more. The entire city had turned into a ghost town at this point. There was not a single soul alive except for Indrik. A green glow appeared on Indrik's forehead in the next instant as a voice was heard next. All 3,436 souls within the city have been snuffed out. You did it, Fusarius voiced with a heavy tone. Yeah, I did it, Indrik muttered with a flat tone. I understand how you feel, but there was no other way, Fusarius said with a comforting tone. Do you? Do you really understand how I feel? You, a talking object, Indrik stated. Guayib, the greenish crystal flew out of Indrik's forehead and floated in front of him. I may not be human anymore, but I assure you I still retain human emotions and empathy, Fusarius replied with a calm tone. So you've killed 3 million people before too? Indrik questioned. No, I haven't. Then you have no idea how I feel. Don't pretend like you do. Indrik stood to his feet and rubbed the bracelet on his wrist for a bit. Sigh, Husarius heavy a light sigh. It may have been 2 years in this world, but in ours, only around 4 months have gone by, Husarius disclosed. It should almost be time for Aesop right now, Indrik realized. It is time to head back, Husarius announced. Let's go back, Indrik responded. Zishes, a portal began opening in front of them as Indrik recalled his time spent here with a slightly regretful look. I won't forget you. He said internally before walking into the portal. I forgot about my physical appearance, Indrik voiced as he stood in front of a mirror. He had developed a light mustache and strands of hair could be seen around his chin region. He had reached a height of 6 feet as well, and his upper body developed a bit of muscles. In this world you are a 13-year-old, but in reality, you are already 15, so this is to be expected. Indrik's forehead glowed repeatedly as Husarius spoke. They will get suspicious. Is there something we can do about this? Indrik questioned. Ting, Husarius flew out of Indrik's forehead in the next instant. Tioyuan, the green crystal emitted a bright light, and in the next instant, Indrik turned a bit shorter. His hair looked less messy, and all of his facial hair had disappeared completely. This is good, Indrik nodded. It is just an illusion. Everyone that stares at you will never be able to tell how you look originally, Husarius stated. I hope so, Indrik responded before he moved towards the shower. Calm. Please visit Panda. N0VE1. Koim yo Indrik, you in there? Minutes later, knocking could be heard from the door repeatedly. I'm coming, Indrik answered before heading towards the door. Upon opening it, a bunch of people could be seen. You've been gone the entire day, man. You good? EE questioned. Yeah, I just needed to do some meditation, Indrik replied. You sure you don't have a chick in there? EE said while stretching his neck in a bid to look indoors. Pa Indi, and no vu 1 inch no. Who are? Indrik was about to ask who she was when memories from the clone drifted into his mind. Oh, she's a Never thought I'd meet one in my lifetime. Indrik thought. Hubby, let's make babies through the night. Sheila voiced out while trying to force her way into his room. Glare. She sensed glares pricking into her bodies from all corners. Dash, you pedo. Dash, have you no shame, woman? Come on, guys. Age is just a number, she screeched with an innocent look. Anyways, Indrik, we just came to remind you that we're heading to the oasis tomorrow, Falco said from the side. Oh, the Bloodline Oasis? Indrik inquired. Yes. We were approved to occupy the place for a week, Falco added. All right then, Indrik nodded. Minutes later, Indrik was seated on his bed with a look of contemplation. I didn't channel my bloodline much in the last 2 years since I barely had the time, but I still reached the peak kilo rank. Visiting the oasis would mean I would reach the delta rank, Indrik thought loud. You would surpass everyone then, your brother included. Intact you already do, Husarius analyzed. It doesn't really matter since his strength can't be gauged by bloodline ranking measures, but at least, this would make me more efficient. I can protect and assist him better, Indrik replied. The next day arrived very quickly, and the group of 20 found their way to one of the aircraft floors. An aircraft that would take them to where the oasis is located was already waiting for them. Big brother, Indrik voiced as he moved closer to Gustav within the aircraft. You're back, Gustav voiced in response. Huh, back? Angie and Matilda, who were beside him, voiced in confusion. Yeah, I didn't think you'd realize. A wry smile appeared on Indrik's face as he said to Gustav. It was quite easy for me. Just like how I can see you have grown taller, Gustav and Indrik kept talking, ignoring Angie and Matilda, who still had looks of confusion. Damn, Husarius. I thought you said no one would notice the difference in physical appearance? Indrik cursed internally. What happened to you? Gustav questioned. Nothing much, Indrik responded. Is that so? All right then. Gustav could see that something was up, but he didn't want to delve too deep since it might not concern him. I have something to ask you, Gustav added. Huh, what is it? Indrik sounded a bit surprised. Later. We'll talk about it later, Gustav replied. Indrik could already tell that it was something Gustav didn't want the others to know about, so he just nodded in response. Zweihiath, the aircraft took off at this point and disappeared into the northern skies. Sesh passed. He kept a box in our apartment and told my mother to give it to me when I awakened my bloodline like he already suspected I would. He began disclosing. After opening the box, I found cash that would last us for a period of time and something else. A guide to bloodline channeling, he added. He explained to Gustav that this was when he began learning how to channel his bloodline due to the guide his big brother left behind. He trained his ability by himself till he surpassed the first bloodline rank, and the opportunity for him to join the MBO arrived when registration instructors came to the city to scout for potential mixed bloods. He explained to Gustav that this was when he began learning how to channel his bloodline due to the guide his big brother left behind. He trained his ability by himself till he surpassed the first bloodline rank, and the opportunity for him to join the MBO arrived when registration instructors came to the city to scout for potential mixed bloods. He explained to Gustav that this was when he began learning how to channel his bloodline due to the guide his big brother left behind. He trained his ability by himself till he surpassed the first bloodline rank, and the opportunity for him to join the MBO arrived when registration instructors came to the city to scout for potential mixed bloods. Chapter 11, 36 Pand A, N0VE1. Calm, you know what to do. Miss Amy's avatar nodded and blasted off into the sky in the next instant. Within a bright conference-like room, a projection of 7 figures could be seen surrounding a massive floating table. A man in silver-colored MBO uniform stood behind on the left side of the table. He looked like a middle-aged man but had a horn on one part of his head. A discussion seemed to have ensued between him and the projection of these 7 figures. It is yet to be unveiled, Grand Commander Shine stated. Is the MBO even doing their job? One of the projected figures voiced out. World Leader 5, this isn't the job of the MBO but the job of all authoritative figures on Earth as well. We are unaware if it is a real threat yet, Grand Commander Shine responded. The energy waves caused a cataclysm on Jupiter and caused Saturn to become solidified while also moving them out of their original orbital positions. And you say that isn't a threat? And the MBO took measures to put them back in their original position. We are playing our part in trying to figure out what that thing was, Commander Shine replied. Not to mention how it caused an earthquake all across the planet despite the barrier. Another of the projected figures voiced. It disappeared without a trace. Satellites are unable to detect its presence, and some of our technological scanners are unable to sense its energy all across the galaxy, Commander Shine explained. The civilians are worried. We're going to have to come up with a story for them soon since we still don't know what we're dealing with here. I suggest going with something simple to avoid planet-wide unrest, Commander Shine suggested. What is the MBO going to do about this next? Don't tell me you have nothing planned just because the satellites are unable to detect anything? World Leader 1 finally spoke. We have sent a team to the appearance point in space to collect data. Once we have information on what we're dealing with, I shall inform the world leaders, Commander Shine stated. Whatever that thing is, we want it neutralized immediately if it is discovered in the process. Another one of the world leaders voiced out. Understood. Grand Commander Shine nodded. We shall await the good news. After saying this, the projections began to fade. The figures disappeared completely after a couple of moments. The whole place turned silent for a bit as Commander Shine seemed to be lost in his thoughts. Commander Shine, a feminine voice pulled him out of his reverie. He quickly turned around with a startled expression as he hadn't expected anyone to get this close to him without his awareness. Amy, he voiced with a tone of surprise as he stared at the feminine figure in white outfit before him. She gave off a celestial aura as she stepped forward. Grand Commander Cheyenne felt it made sense now since no ordinary person would be able to get this close to him without his knowledge. What are you doing here? He questioned. You know why I'm here, Miss Amy replied. The giant eye? Grand Commander Cheyenne felt this could be the only reason she would just pop by his place without prior notice. It appeared right beside my planet, Miss Amy voiced in response. That means you were right next to it? Commander Cheyenne felt this would help bring in more information since Miss Amy was closer. It was, but it disappeared too quickly. I was unable to engage it in any form, Miss Amy replied. The whole planet was plunged into unrest. Do you know what it is, or its purpose for appearing? Commander Cheyenne questioned. No, she replied. I sent a team to the location where it appeared. Maybe they will be able to discover something, Grand Commander Cheyenne stated. That is a waste of time. They won't discover anything, Miss Amy voiced out. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. But I've tried, there is nothing. Not a single trace was left. It doesn't matter what technology they use, they won't be able to uncover anything. Miss Amy bluntly shut down any hopes Great Commander Cheyenne had initially. Great Commander Cheyenne let out a heavy sigh as he stepped back and sat on the table with a contemplative look. What do we do? He questioned. That thing. It appeared like it had always been there, and disappeared like it never existed. It gives off a presence unlike nothing I have ever felt before, Miss Amy disclosed. What? It didn't travel across space to that point? It just suddenly appeared? Great Commander Cheyenne questioned with a look of disbelief. Yes, I didn't sense spatial energy either. Also, it is at least 8 times the size of Earth's sun. Spatial travel for such a massive entity is practically impossible, Miss Amy stated her analysis. You said it gave off a presence like nothing you have ever felt. How exactly did it feel? Great Commander Cheyenne inquired. Powerful, unfathomable, choking, overbearingly powerful. Grand Commander Cheyenne's face went from intrigue to disbelief and then shock in a couple of moments. He understood how much powerful Miss Amy had become and realized that for her to be giving this sort of description meant none of them on Earth would be able to withstand being in the presence of that massive eye. But it's just an eye. Great Commander Cheyenne couldn't help but mutter. That's why it cannot be just an eye. We have to find out what it is and get rid of it, Miss Amy pointed out. Get rid of it? We don't know if it is an enemy yet, Great Commander Cheyenne responded. I want to uncover all the necessary details about it, but incurring the wrath of an entity that puts fear in you of all people's heart is not something that I think would be in the best interests of Earth, Great Commander Cheyenne stated. Don't be a coward. That thing is nothing good, I can guarantee that. Just because Earth was unscathed this time doesn't mean the same scenario will play out next time, Miss Amy voiced with a tone of coldness as her eyes squinted. We still don't know what we're dealing with, Commander Cheyenne responded. I will kill that thing before it can cause harm to everything I hold dear, and you will help me with the support of Earth, Miss Amy stated with an authoritative tone. An aircraft could be seen slowly descending from the sky towards the top of a massive mountain with the statue of a bird above. The bird was looking like an eagle, but with very long talons which was bigger than a full-grown adult. The bird itself was a structure of its own, and guards could be seen all across the vicinity. Upon touching down, a group of 20 filed out from the aircraft one after the other. 2 MBO officers who were already awaiting their descent began to slowly lead them down the mountain path on the east side. If we were headed for the bottom of the mountain, why didn't we just get off at the bottom? Ria wondered out loud as they slowly made their way down. Because the security measures put in place will destroy the aircraft. Dwellers who seem to be living very frivolously. Where are the ones you said were suspicious? Gustav questioned as he tried to hide the expression of disgust he felt deep down. You're 6 o'clock, the one with the brown clothing, and you're 2 o'clock, the one with a wrapper like cloth, E.E. whispered. Even without turning around to stare in their direction, Gustav could make out their entire appearance using his perception. Now that you mention it, they do seem kind of suspicious, Gustav stated. Did you notice it? E.E. questioned. The mud smeared on part of their body. It doesn't seem particularly old. It's barely noticeable, but if they had been on the slums for a very long time, it would look a bit different. Gustav was finally taking note. I didn't notice that, but what I did notice was, they act like they frequent this place a lot, but if they did I would have seen them before. I have never seen them. This used to be the den of my brother's gang, and it became like this after he passed. I know every single person that frequents this place, and since they're adults, I would have seen them before as well, but I haven't. Secondly, the one sitting 2 o'clock was holding the cards wrongly. The one 6 o'clock was observing the environment while trying to act like he's asleep. E listed out. I did notice he wasn't asleep, but I didn't find him suspicious. You are right, these two definitely need to be observed, Gustav whispered back. Chapter 1137. There's a beam in the middle? Angie voiced with an expression of confusion. That's not a beam. That is still a part of the oasis, Gustav replied. Huh. How? Angie was about to ask again when the MBO officers ahead explained. The oasis have different level of effectiveness, which is also represented by the floating pieces of rocks around it, the officer by the left voiced out. The further up you go, the more the effectiveness of the oasis. However, it is advisable not to go beyond the 4th level for mixed bloods below the Delta rank, the other officer explained. Why not? Falco questioned. Mixed bloods lower than the Delta rank will feel too much pressure bearing on their bloodline channels, which might cause the channels to burst, causing the mixed blood to lose their power and return to the Zulu rank, the officer responded. THS effectiveness is quadrupled at that height, but so is the pressure, the other officer added. Everyone besides Gustav had looks of astonishment after hearing that. They stared at the pillar of water extending from the stream below straight up. The pillar of water extending up turned into a different color the higher it extended. 7 levels and we can't go beyond the 4th, Ildris mumbled. At the 5th level, the pillar of water was starting to look reddish, but was still transparent. However, from the 6th level, it was pure red with no transparency. The 7th level above glowed a bright and crimson color. It looked similar to blood. The 1st level was the stream itself where everyone could soak in without issues. Well, leave no, so you all won't be disturbed. Be careful, the two officers voiced out after arriving at the bottom of the mountain. Everyone voiced out their appreciation and bid farewell to them before moving further ahead. I can already feel my bloodline energy stirring up, Timi said with a tone of fascination. Same here. The air itself makes my bloodline channel faster, Abestos voiced out. With this, I should at least reach the 2nd or 3rd step of Kilo, Finks said with a slightly delighted expression. I will reach the 3rd step and defeat Gustav. The captain position will be mine. Yonda stated. Not a chance, everyone voiced at the same time. Teach. Yonda expression turned sour. Give it up, man. Just focus on getting stronger, Fildhor said while patting Yonda on the back. Vera moved forward and began removing her clothes. I'm not here, Vera. Rhea and Falco faces burned up as they voiced out. Vera paused for a bit before completely unbuttoning her MBO uniform. Some of the guys had covered their faces with their hands. I have a swimsuit, Vera voiced out. Oh, Falco hand dropped after hearing this. Vera had a greenish swim suit underneath which complemented her hair color and slightly lifeless eyes. The other girls giggled upon seeing the reaction of the boys and took off their clothes as well before jumping into the stream. A marvelous sight to behold indeed, E voiced with a smile. Pa. He felt a push from behind, and before he knew what was happening, his body had already blasted forward. UMF, tush. A loud splashing sound rang out as he landed in the stream right beside Elevera. E quickly pushed his head out of the water before he could drown. Elevera, who was right beside him with a yellow swimsuit, began chuckling upon seeing his expression. You can laugh? E voiced with an expression of disbelief. Elevera turned to the side quickly while E added, Looks good on you. You should definitely smile more. Elevera had a slight blush on her cheek as she slowly descended into the water. As for my revenge, E snapped his fingers. Panda, NOV, E1A Vortex appeared right behind the culprit, who happened to be Falco. It was too late for Falco to react as he turned around in the process of the vortex, swallowing him up. Zing, he reappeared from a vortex above the stream and fell strictly into the oasis. The group was jolly as they moved into the stream one after the other while laughing and chatting. Gustav only had a black shorts on at this time as he stared at the stream. Everyone was already in except for him. He slowly raised his head. If one followed his sight, they'd see that he was staring at the ascending pillar of water in the middle of the stream. It seemed to be swirling with a compelling torrent of energy. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. Koem Yo Gus. Get in. A yell was heard from within the stream. See you guys after 1 week, Gustav voiced out in response before leaping. Fuhum, everyone's eyes widened as Gustav's body ascended above the 4th level instantly. PSSSHSHHHH, a mixture of splashing and sizzling sound rang out as Gustav's entered the 5th level, which had a transparent red coloring. Wasn't the 5th level off limits? What the hell is he doing? Some of them instantly went bonkers upon seeing Gustav enter the 5th level. We need to inform the guides and get him out of there, Matilda yelled while jumping out of the Oasis 1st level. Guys, I'm fine. Focus on increasing your strength. Everyone heard the soothing voice or Gustav in their minds. Did you guys hear that too? Rosalind voiced out. We did, Falco confirmed. Oh good. I thought I was hearing things, Abesto sighed in relief. Well, technically, you were. The group was a bit startled at first, but after hearing Gustav's voice in their mind, they relaxed. It is Gustav after all. Ildris, Falco, and the others had this thought in mind. Meanwhile, the others were still reeling in shock and wondering if the officers earlier gave them wrong information. How is he still fine, despite staying in a level that is dangerous for mixed bloods below the Delta rank? Some of them wondered if Gustav had already achieved the Delta rank. However, they knew this wasn't the case since they only sensed the rank of a first-step kilo from him earlier. I am heading higher. I will reach the 5th level too, Yonda decided as he moved towards the middle where the pillar of water could be seen. Everyone had no idea that the last time Gustav visited this place, he had stopped at level 4. He rose through the levels one after the other, getting used to the feeling of meditating and channeling his bloodline within each one of them. Stopping at the 4th level the last time meant bloodline channeling would be slower for him than the last time, which was why he immediately headed for the 5th level. The 1st level of the Oasis felt like being wrapped by comfort. Every cell in a mixed blood body would feel like it was getting exclusive treatment. Channeling bloodline there was 4 times faster than normal. The 2nd level was where a mixed blood would start to feel a little strain, but it was barely noticeable. Bloodline channeling speed at this level was 8 times faster than normal. From the 3rd level, it became very noticeable, but the pressure felt within was something any Falcon to Echo rank could handle. Channeling speed was 16 times faster at this point. At the 4th level, it became a matter of how powerful one's pain tolerance was. Staying within this level was accompanied by the feeling of one's insides getting crushed. Not only was bloodline channeling 32 times faster, but it also automatically strengthened the durability of a mixed blood. Channeling here for a week was no different from channeling in the outside world for a year. This was how Gustav easily got to the kilo rank. At the 5th level, which Gustav was just trying out for the first time, he could feel a pressure on his internal organs. His veins threatened to explode as well, and overall an invisible weight bore upon his mental state. However, one of the good parts about being in the 5th level was channeling speed was 100 times faster. This wasn't the only good part. The Oasis also channeled a mixed blood bloodline automatically, and there was a high chance of bloodline grade increment. SS Gustav proceeded to squat. He placed a hand on his left eye and placed the other on the ground before activating an ability. God Eyes has been activated. All-seeing vision of the night. Gustav muttered as his eyes changed from crimson and green glow into sky blue. His exposed right eye had entirely turned completely blue. He and Gustav's body cranked up like he was having a seizure in the next instant as, for now, we observe, Gustav whispered. I take dibs on the 6 o'clock, whispered back before they both separate and move to different parts of this demolished building. Despite the fact that this building was almost completely run down, it still had some higher floors and missing stairways. The slum touts usually made their way to the upper incomplete floors regardless. Some would climb. This made the upper floors in use as well. Gustav could already tell that there were over 200 slum dwellers in this decimated building alone, which was most likely very large when it was a complete building. Now that and Gustav had focused on one of each suspects, they would have to secretly follow these two wherever they went. For the next 3 to 4 hours, both suspects didn't engage in any suspicious acts besides the games that were ongoing in this part of the slums. They mingled with the others, smoking, frolicking, and drinking. Gustav and E also pretended to join in with the games they played here. Gustav secretly activated God Eyes to scan both suspects and confirmed they weren't mixed bloods. The one in a wrapper-like cloth had a buzz cut and slight pot belly, but that was about it. While the other one with a tattered brown clothing was bald and had a tattoo on his inner thigh. Chapter 1138, it was said that this particular one could make the mixed blood increased in strength by a couple of steps. A mixed blood who managed to reach this point in the oasis would become way stronger than whatever rank they achieved when leaving this place. Are you storing up more energy now? Gustav asked internal, as he withstood the pressure of the 5th level. This time I should be able to absorb more and put it into a backup storage just in case, the system replied internally. All right, this time, what happened the other day will not repeat itself, the system added. You going bonkers the other day? Yes. There will be enough energy to protect against any forceful override. Just as I thought, that thing was truly responsible then, did it appear because of me? You already know I won't answer that, but it looks like you haven't regained a single power of your outworldly identity that you can control yet, so you cannot truly understand anything. So, until I'm able to use Cohelia then, Gustav slightly raised his left palm and peered into it. The multicolored slanted rhombus glow deep within was still trapped in a barrier. We'll just focus on getting even more powerful. Gustav's face turned serious as he closed his eyes back. Nothing could be seen in this world of red, so there was no point to leaving his eyes opened unless he activated God Eyes. The pressure of the 5th level was something he could bear. He could feel all of his bloodline getting nourished as he floated within the 5th level. A torrent of energy slowly began circulating around him, causing the glowing red oasis to start spinning as well. Originally, it would take a kilo ranked around 5 to 10 years before they could get to the next rank. However, for people like Indrik who had a high bloodline grade, it would take them around 2 to 3 years. Being in the 5th level meant 1 week of bloodline channeling would equal 2 years in the normal state. When you are done, tell me. I will challenge the higher levels, Gustav said to the system internally. Sure. Daily task completed, 2/3. Enter the 5th level of the Oasis square root, rewards, plus 8,000,000 EXP, plus 30 attributes point. Gustav's eyes remained closed while the notifications kept ringing in his head. He ignored the sounds and focused, letting the energy from the oasis seep into his body. You don't want to go higher? Husaruis questioned within Indrik's mind. Not yet. Did you forget the phenomenon of ranking up to Delta? Indrik reminded. Why is that a problem? Husarius inquired. I don't want everyone to be aware of my strength level. Too much questions will be asked since a lot of things don't add up. I should be at the peak of Echo instead I am at the peak of Kilo. Indrik explained. If it is the phenomenon that you are worried about, I can suppress it, Husarius stated. Huh. How? I will trap it in your core for the meantime, and which means you would have achieved the Delta rank but not completely. When you finally have the chance to be alone, I will unleash it and you will become a full-fledged Delta rank, Husarius explained. Indrik, thinking face, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You can't waste it all because you're afraid of becoming more powerful, Husarius added. Well, all right then. Indrik opened his eyes and looked around. Almost everyone was still in the 2nd level of the oasis, while some had already moved to the 3rd level. Indrik could spot Vera and a few others here with their eyes closed. They just floated within the body of water. Waving his arms down multiple times, Indrik arrived at the 3rd level where he could spot Angie, Ildris, Abestos, Falco, Rhea, Finks, Fildhor, Matilda, and Gladehere. They had formed a kind of circle as they floated within the 4th level with their eyes closed. Please visit Panda, N0VE1. Some of them had expressions of pain on their faces which depicted they were still adjusting to the pain of the 3rd level. Man, if the 3rd level hurts this much, then how painful would the 4th be? He had this thought in mind as he bore the pain. He wasn't the only one having this thought. Some of them hadn't expected it to hurt this way, but at the same time they could feel the energy from the oasis flowing into their bloodline channels. No pain, no gain, I guess. But I'm staying here for now. No way I'm gonna try to kill myself like these maniacs, he decided. Indrik could feel the improvement just from staying within the third level for a couple of hours. However, he knew within himself that this wouldn't be enough to break through to the Delta rank. The peak stage of the Kilo rank was the most difficult out of all 4 steps. Trying to break through could take years, and Indrik could tell that this level of the Oasis wasn't fast enough to get him to break through in a week. Time to go further up. Indrik began swimming higher. The further he swam, the more the pressure. It started making him feel like he was lifting over 1,000 tons while swimming. He could see the 4th level right above him, but getting in was more difficult than he had expected. Telekinesis tube, Indrik said internally, causing energy to spread forth from his being. An intense vibration could be felt within the Oasis as space shifted. A hollow passage that led up was formed right around Indrik, leading straight up into the next level. The others who had felt the intensity opened their eyes and were shocked to see Indrik floating straight up into level 4 unhindered. Upon closer look, they could see that there was no water within the area he ascended from. The Oasis water had been pushed aside for a bit. In a few moments, everything returned to normal after Indrik had gotten into the 4th level. Did he just? That kid is a monster like his brother. They had these thoughts in mind as they stared up while shaking their heads. The only other 2 that had arrived at the 4th level were Elevra and Yonda. They hadn't expected someone else to go up this quickly. In a flash, 3 days had gone by. HNNNGHHH. Plush. A massive water pressure pushed a short guy in tank top and shorts back downwards. He stared up with an unyielding expression where a transparent red floating body of water could be seen. I will get to the 5th level no matter what, he swore internally while charging upwards again. Furhu waving his arms downwards, his body ascended across the Oasis with speed. Thaya, only for him to be met with another hindering force. The waters right before the 5th level was so dense that no matter how much he tried, he couldn't break through it. Elevra, Sheila, Vin, Abestos, and Indrik, who were all floating in the 4th level further below, looked upwards for a bit before resuming their meditation. They paid no heed to Yonda, who had been trying to get into the 5th level for the past day. Abestos shook his head with a slight expression of pity. If he spent more time channeling his bloodline rather than trying to get into the 5th level, he would have progressed farther by now. The others seemed contented with this level of speed and remained focused on channeling their bloodline, knowing they would get good results from it regardless. How did that Muppet do it? He got in so easily, Yonda thought as he recalled just how easy Gustav leapt into the 5th level. He had already tried the same thing from outside the Oasis, but the pillar of water extending upwards was extremely hard at level 5. The instant he made contact with the outside walls of water, he got blasted backwards with force. He had tried multiple times, but achieved the same result, and now trying it within the Oasis, he was met with resistance. At this point, Angie got to the 4th level with Matilda and Falco. Their faces showed looks of pain as they tried to adapt to the new environment which brought them pain. Andy and Ovone. Komi, who had later summoned up courage to head to the 4th level, arrived, and headed for the space in between Angie and Elevra since they had formed a kind of circle. They could both feel his approach but didn't bother opening their eyes. As he was trying to slither in between both girls, his arm accidentally brushed against Elevra's. Thighs, a strange phenomenon was suddenly displayed as both their figures glowed up immensely, causing everyone to open their eyes with looks of confusion. What just happened? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.